Trevor, you don't know this yet. You will someday. Oh, the market share capture, the brain share capture of toddlers by Sesame Street is like 95%.
It's insane.
It's
Sesame
insane.
Street.
Wait, it's still that high?
Oh yes,
That's amazing.
It's a classic.
No,
and it
but
works.
I'm happy about it. I thought like it was over for Sesame
No,
Street,
still
and now it was all like Cocomelon and
No.
Oh, that's really
They
good.
have got to strangle. They have your kid in a head.
Yeah, it's so Sesame Street,
Well, that's a healthy headlock.
Peppa Pig, and Cocomelon.
Oh, Peppa Pig is
Cocomelon
fire,
is like
though.
crack. I call them
Cocomelon, I
yeah.
outlawed Cocomelon.
Yeah, yeah.
Cocomelon is dangerous.
Yeah,
I don't know what's
it's dangerous,
happening there.
dangerous. I call them the Coco fellas, the kids
Yeah.
that watch that stuff.
I don't know what's
it's
happening
weird.
with
If I have
Cocomelon.
if I have to listen to any more Cocomelon, I'm bringing back Stop and Frisk. That's how much it will radicalize me.
This is What Now with Trevor Noah.
We were telling people, when we talked about you, I was like, do you know black people don't know Malcolm's black, but white people don't know Malcolm's black.
Yeah,
We were talking about, I was like, white people don't know.
No, I'm stealth. I would have, back in the day, it would have been I was born in the wrong century. 19th century, fantastic for me.
You would have taken the system down from the inside out.
They're like, wait a minute. Like historians would have uncovered 100 years later. Wait a second. He was black. What was he doing in Congress?
Talking about Malcolm being passing
Yeah.
to white
right,
people.
right.
Black people see the hair, they're like, no. They're like,
it's a tell.
It is a tell. It is completely a tell. But now I didn't know that. When did this Nigerian thing happen?
I did my 23andMe, and I'm 23% Igbo.
Oh my God.
Which is so fantastic. And I put it on Twitter, and this is like every Nigerian on Twitter was like, oh my God, fantastic. But every single one was positive. Like it was the most, inclusive experience I've ever had in my life. I was very happy. But it was obvious because Jamaicans are all Igbo, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Jamaica's just Nigeria.
Right.
It's my advanced theory of
So
Jamaica.
you had no clue that you had any Nigerian in you.
Well, I guessed.
Okay, but now you know definitively.
Now I know
Wait, what is it? So
definitively.
23%
That's a significant
Igbo?
amount.
It's not enough for a tipping point, as we've learned from this book. It's not enough, Malcolm. You're
No,
like 7% short.
We can change the rules. You know, Nigerians, we
Hey,
like to switch the rules.
Nigerians with 1%.
Each one of us.
So
Yeah,
I
because
went-
Nigerians will be technically 1% or the more than.
On the Jamaican front, I was at the World Championships, track championships, and I see Shelley Ann Fraser-Pryce, right? One of my heroes. So she's like this big. I go up and say, hello, my name is Malcolm. I don't know if you know this, I'm half Jamaican. She says, there's no such thing as half Jamaican.
There's only Jamaican.
There's only Jamaican.
Yeah,
that's
right.
the right attitude.
That is the right
That is the right
attitude.
attitude. There's no such thing as 23% Nigerian.
Yeah, I
Yes,
sometimes think it would.
complete
That's what,
Nigerian.
like, if instead of the British, if like Africans colonized the world, no one would have been left out. Do you know what I mean? Because because all other colonization was like, you're not like us.
Yeah.
And then like, whereas Africans are very much anyone black anyway, they just go like, no, you're with us. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. It doesn't matter. Have you even seen those videos online
Yeah.
of people who can just speak the language or can do the accent well? They're like, all right, you're one of us.
That's right.
I'm saying Malcolm should go to Abia State. They'll make him a chief.
Chief Gladwell.
I'll take
Chief
it.
Gladwell.
Igwe Malcolm Gladwell.
Oh man,
love that.
Malcolm, I saw you were releasing a new book, and you know I'm a huge fan of yours. We've talked over the years. I'm always trying to see what Malcolm Gladwell is thinking of, to give me a sense of like what I'm missing in the world. I think a lot of people think like that. As my friend David says, who you've met, David always used to say, you make people think they're smart because they read your book and then they talk to other people about it. But like this book is an interesting take on Malcolm Gladwell, like Revenge of the Tipping Point. At first I was like, wait, is it a continuation? But no, it feels like you are going up against you.
You thinking it's an exercise in self-hatred? Is that what you're saying?
No. Because here's the thing. Oftentimes people will write a book and very, very seldom will it change the world. Let's start with that, right? The Tipping Point, I would argue, changed the way people fundamentally think about many things. And then very few people would then go back and go, well, actually, let's change some of the thinking that this book basically laid the foundations for. Why do that?
Well, no one likes changing his mind more than me, first of all. I just enjoy it. My dad really enjoyed it. And as a kid, some of my greatest memories of my father who was a marvelous character in his own, was him just shamelessly changing his mind on a subject, like without any explanation or apology. He just would agree. He'd talk to somebody, and if he would always make this calculation. He would talk to someone, and if he thought they knew even 1% more on a subject than he did, he'd just like, all right, you're right. I now think this. And he was done. I thought it was fantastic as a child. And secretly that's what I want. I want to be the guy who wakes up and decides. And Kate, my partner, is always making fun of me on this because I will not like someone and then I'll just wake up and think, they're great. Like, why don't we have them over? She's like, wait, I thought you didn't like them. It's like, yeah, that's, that was the past. Now I'm all over them. So I didn't read The Tipping Point after I wrote it. And then it was its anniversary, and I thought, I should read it again because we were thinking of doing a revised edition.
Yeah.
So I read it again. I'm like, wait a second. I wrote that? Like, I just felt I was like arguing with the book the whole time. So that's I want to do a new one. That was basically what happened.
Are you the opposite or the same?
I'm the opposite. And that's why I find it so interesting that you were raised by a man who like changes his mind easily. Like my parents are like deep Christians and they're not changing their mind about anything.
No, my parents, deep Christians.
Okay, that's interesting.
Wow.
They're not changing.
All of us here.
Okay.
Super deep Christians. Here we are. Three of us are gathered in his name. Let's go.
No, but no, not change their mind about that.
Yeah. So I'm saying that I'm used to real rigidity and rules, and I won't call it dogma, orthodoxy, right? So it's surprising that I think it takes great humility, but it also must be quite painful to go back and read this book that, as Trevor said, changed the way we think about ideas and how they spread and be like, not right.
I don't think it's painful. First of all, just to go back on parents for a second. So my father's, can I talk about my dad?
Yeah, of course. Talk about your dad.
He passed 6 or 7 years ago. And I wrote his obituary and I said he had strong opinions about the Bible, gardening, and mathematics. And on everything else, he was open to suggestion. And I sort of think that's the right model. You got to have your core set of things that you hold dearly. And I think you should, I always use the phrase that ideas should be held loosely. Mm-hmm. And they're not values, but ideas. Values you hold tightly, but ideas you hold loosely because stuff changes. And you grow up or you're, in the original Tipping Point, there's a chapter on crime, which is just why New York City crime fell in the 90s. It's an appalling chapter. I mean, it's just appalling.
Is this like the broken windows?
Yes. Yeah, like, Jesus. Okay. Like, what was I thinking? I mean, I didn't know any better, I guess. But it's not difficult. To me, it's very freeing to say I was wrong.
I'm curious, is it that do you think the world has changed that radically in the 25 years? Or were the ideas wrong then?
Well, the world, yes, of course the world has changed, although probably changed less than we think. I think sometimes we fetishize, certain kinds of technological innovation and think we've reinvented ourselves as human beings. And it's just, to my mind, a little bit more of the same. But mostly it's that I've moved, like the crime example is a good one, that I wrote that broken windows was a fetish in New York City in the 90s. The mayor, Giuliani at the time, was like running around and saying, the only way to stop murder was to stop people from peeing on the sidewalk. Mm-hmm. Now, I think he was right to say that people shouldn't be peeing on the sidewalk and we should clean up. That was totally right. But he made two subsequent connections. His first thing was that the way to stop people from engaging in that kind of behavior was to arrest them by the thousands. And then secondly, he said, and that's also, by the way, how you stop violent crime. Mm. Both of those second claims were, in retrospect, preposterous, right? In the moment in the late 90s when we had just witnessed New York go from being one of the least safe big cities in North America to one of the safest, we were sort of willing to pay any price for that improvement in safety and accept any explanation. And that was the fever that I was caught up in. I was like, okay, we're arresting hundreds of thousands of young Black men in the Bronx and Brooklyn, but better that than being killed. That's what we were all thinking, right? And then, I subsequently learned this. It's actually an incredibly interesting history. What happens is a judge stops stop and frisk in New York. We go from stopping 700,000 people in 1 year to stopping 20,000. Oh. And everyone says, including the judge who stopped it, crime's going to go back up. And what happens? Crime falls another 50%. And everyone's like, oh my God, not only was stop and frisk irrelevant to the crime drop, maybe it was preventing us from using police resources in a way that actually helped solve. So we learned, this happened in 2012. And my point is, if you lived through that learning moment in 2012, when we took away stop and frisk and crime fell another 50%, if you lived through those next 5 years and you didn't change your mind, then you are morally bankrupt, right? You have to have changed your mind at that point. So you have to acknowledge it's not wrong to be wrong in 1996. It's wrong to not change your mind after we learned something crucial in those post stop and frisk years. It's like you have to respond. The price of playing the game of ideas in the world is you have to stay on your toes and respond to new evidence as it arises. You want to play this game, that's the rule.
Okay, here's the thing. I think there are two things that you don't do that probably help you. One, you don't make it your identity. So you wrote about broken windows, but then there were some people who shaped their lives around broken windows. And then secondly, you didn't implement any policies. And I think that's probably one of the scariest things. Like politicians in America are perfect examples. Very few of them are able to say, yeah, that was wrong. We used data that at the time was misread or misunderstood, or we used what we had and we made an incorrect decision. They don't say that. They go like, no, if you look at what we were trying to do and we still, because everyone's afraid to say, I mean, just in life, everyone is afraid to say, I was wrong. Like listening to you right now, I don't know how many times I've heard human beings say that. Just go like, I look back and go like, damn, what was I thinking?
Oh, so, I mean, I find it so weird. And also it was so long ago, like this was the late 90s. I'm older than you guys, but it's like, have you looked at your high school yearbook or like, it's just everything about it is cringeworthy. I mean, it should be fine to look back on your 25 years in the past self and have an issue. I would hope you would have an issue.
I think it's because so much of the world that we live in currently is built, say, as a foreigner coming to America. So many times the Constitution is referenced and the amendments are referenced. Our world is built on ideas that sometimes emerged thousands of years ago, and we refuse to revisit them in the same way you're revisiting Tipping Point.
But the funny thing about the amendments for me is the name itself. Like whenever people get angry, you know, like you talk about the amendments, you go like, oh, you change the amendment. Then like, you don't change the amendment. Then I'm like, amendment means change. It literally means change.
But they don't want any more change.
Yes, but what I'm saying is like, that's what I find ironic in the whole situation is like, I agree with you. Constitution, old document, but it's a living document. You know, it was one of the first documents that was created where they said, hey, the whole purpose of this thing is that you're supposed to change it because, look, we think what we think right now. It's almost like the forefathers looked at each other and they were just like, I don't know about these wigs. I don't know about these shoes. So I don't know about these ideas.
Exactly.
So let's let people change them. And like, I've seen, I mean, I don't know if you like read reviews about your work. Some people almost seem angry at you. They like seem angry that Malcolm Gladwell would change, because here's my theory. So I love changing my mind. Okay, maybe that's why I like you so much. But I think some people base their ideas on other people's ideas. And so then if you change your idea, they get so angry at you because they're like, no, you, because
you're like, making them do work.
Yeah.
So you have to revise your opinion of them. And that seems like, that seems like an imposition. I think that's what, as opposed to kind of, it's the same way when a musician makes a kind of change in their style. And there's always a set of fans who are appalled by this. Like they want the musician to be kind of frozen in amber. Yeah. To be the same person they encountered for the first time at 16. And how dare you use an electric guitar or whatever the argument is. Yeah, it is a funny, I think the question is, who is your obligation to as a writer? Is it to your audience or is it to yourself? And I think it has to be, first and foremost, it has to be to yourself.
We're going to continue this conversation right after this short break. So now let's play. I want to play a Malcolm Gladwell game in this moment here. Okay. So someone might go, oh, but Malcolm, how can I trust this? Because now like you just wrote a book that says I shouldn't trust what you wrote in the other book, and then do you do you know what I mean?
It's not that you shouldn't trust what I said in the other book.
Right.
It's that I've moved on. It's just not where I am at this moment.
So you're saying like it's not that the ideas are wrong, it's that we should be able to we should be able to evolve our ideas based on new information.
I haven't repudiated them. They're not who I am now, right?
Yeah.
It's, in the same way, it wasn't, to go back to my dad, for example, when my dad changed his mind, sometimes it would be, he would go from, A to Z. But sometimes it was just, there was an earlier version of himself that believed this, and then that self was gone. And he was now someone who believed this new thing. It was just a kind of, it's just about accepting the evolution. The thinking involves evolution.
You're a journalist, and you used to digging and borrowing and, finding old tapes and newspaper articles. And like, for the average person, like, where do they get the new ideas? Where do they even get the opportunity to change their minds,
This is interesting. I have a friend of mine. I was playing the game I love playing the Magic Wand game, where if you could wave a magic wand and change one thing, what would it be in the world? And her answer was to make everyone in the world for 1 year trade places with someone else in the world. So just imagine a big everyone in the world puts their name in a hat, and then you put your address. You put your address in a hat, and then you pull out a different address, and you got to live there for a year. And her argument would be...
This only works for people with addresses, by the way.
Right.
I'm just going to point this out.
If you're unhoused.
Yeah, some people are just on the street. You just have to put where you were on the street, and then someone switches with you.
Yes. And her argument would be that this would be the single greatest way to solve, the single greatest short-term solution to mankind's problems. By the way, I think she's 100% right. This is such a genius idea. But my point is, if you want to participate in the world in a kind of ethical way, you have to do a version of this in your life. Mm-hmm. So I have a simple thing I do, which is I try and change the people I follow a very small number of people on Twitter, and I constantly change them. And so I cycle through, I'm always, once a week or something, I drop 2 or 3 people and add 2 or 3 people, just trying to, because you get exposed to new.
Yeah.
And I try to get I also want, so I follow the Ukrainian war, I don't know why, really closely, but entirely through these ex-military guys who are obsessed with logistics. I love these guys. And it's stuff I would never in a million years have heard of before. It's not, none of what they say is in the news. It's all so weird and super interesting. My favorite guy is this guy, Trent Cholenko. I love Trent Cholenko. I want to meet him one day. Who's by the way, he's been saying that Russians are going to lose. He's been saying this since the beginning of the war. And he had this great tweet early in the war where he found a photograph of a Russian transport carrier, like a truck, that was stuck in the mud.
Yeah. And
he zeroes in on the tires.
Oh, I remember this.
Do you remember this?
Yes, I remember this.
Made in the USSR. And he was like, they've lost. Yeah. They can't win. Their tires are from before the wall fell.
Yeah.
And he goes this whole rant about tires, about how you gotta be rotating the tires. If the truck's in storage, the tire's gonna break apart. It's and if there's tires of that says that this doesn't work and you don't have this, and it's so that's you have to keep exposing yourself. That's how you learn about what you need to update.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now when I read something conventional about the war, I have a slightly different perspective because I have Trent in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm asking a different set of questions about than I would have otherwise. It's not that I'm a skeptic. It's just that I have a different, I'm looking at it from a different perspective.
What you've described, I think you have this basic level of intellectual curiosity. Mm-hmm. And Trevor said earlier that the reason you can hold your ideas loosely is because your ideas aren't your identity.
Yeah.
Now, I would say it feels in this specific moment for a lot of people that their ideas are actually a huge part of their identity. They make up their identity. So if they're not going to come apart from that idea because it's who am I? There's a vacuum after that. Mm. So what do we do when we're engaging with people in our lives who ideas have become their identity, and you're trying to get them to see another point of view or point them towards something else, and they're like, oh, you're just a crazy liberal, or you're just a crazy conservative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought about this recently because I go to this little coffee shop near my hometown upstate, and there's these two old guys who are in the corner. They're there every time I go there. And they're always having an argument about, not an argument, a long discussion about movies. They're movie junkies. Mm-hmm. And they have encyclopedic knowledge, and I eavesdrop on them all the time. And I realize that there's something really lovely there, which is that they have clearly a huge part of their identity is about the enjoyment and appreciation of that particular art form. And I would imagine that if one of those guys was a Trumper MAGA type and the other was a diehard liberal, it wouldn't matter because they had found this area that was more important to their identity and that where they could find common ground and where they could find each other, find joy in each other's company. And it's those kinds of spaces that I feel have been eroded. I use the movie example for a reason, which was for the longest time in many cultures around the world, the movies occupied this huge position in people, the way people related to the world.
Yeah.
They saw, talk to people who grew up in New York in the 30s and 40s, they would see a movie every day. And that's what they would talk about on the playground. Yeah. And that's what they would, sports function in that way. And I sometimes think that what we need actually weirdly is more sports, not less sports, because sports are one of the few things that can occupy a big space and bring people together. And you can have a long conversation with someone about sports and politics would never come up. Even my parents would be a good example. My, white father, black mother, a lot of people looked at them and said, you guys are so different. That's not how they organized their life. They said they thought they were exactly the same. They thought we're two committed Christians who, their fathers read the same books. And I think that's the issue. It's just not good to spend all your time wallowing in political arguments.
But I also think it's this. I think I remember a friend of mine describing to me, he worked as a computer programmer. And I remember one day he was explaining the concept of the second system effect. The second system effect is what they teach programmers and coders about when working on a program and then moving it to the next version. And they go, you always have to consider the things that might happen that you don't know might happen because you've now changed the program over. Because you always think of what you're updating, you always think of what you're improving, but you seldom think of what that could cause as a knock-on effect to what you didn't want, an unintended consequence. And oftentimes that's what happens, right? You'll see it on your phone all the time. They'll go new software, and then very quickly afterwards, they'll be like, new software on top of the new software, because we just realized that what the new software did was it made the keyboard unusable when you were sending a text to certain people in a group chat. Yeah. That's a second system effect, right? And that gave me a whole new way to think about life, because now I would go, sometimes we make a change that is oftentimes an improvement, by the way, but we don't think of what the possible second system effect could be. Like streaming and the proliferation of TV shows and like on demand. You can watch Breaking Bad when you want to watch Breaking Bad. And have you watched Game of Thrones? I'll watch it when you know what I mean? It's given you so much choice. But what a lot of people don't realize is it's robbed us of communal consumption. But then what have we all seen? The debate. Oh, I saw the debate. Oh, I saw the debate. Did you see the debate? Yeah. And so unfortunately now, I don't think it's politics so much as it's live. Live is the only thing that still exists in society that forces us to all to experience it at the same time. And so it's not sports and it's not politics. It's just these are the final vestiges of live television. The debates are live. So the election is live.
Olympics.
The Trump assassination is live. The Olympics are live. The Super Bowl is live. But I think what it's done is it's robbed us of shared realities, is what I think. I used to watch the same TV shows as my parents, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. And inversely, they had to watch the same shows I watched. So sometimes my mom would be watching the cartoons or the sitcoms that I was watching before we got to the news or like a murder movie documentary or whatever thing. But we had ATV and it played in linear time. So we just had to do it together. And I actually think that's one of the things that we're experiencing in society is like less live.
I realize now when I'm outside of live, like many people, I'm lost.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched Perfect Couple.
Yeah.
Why did I watch Perfect Couple on Netflix? That's like,
or
I'm never getting, I got like got 5 episodes in. I'm like, I cannot believe that I have just devoted this.
Now it's time for F1 Love, a segment where I get to talk all things F1 and why you should be excited for the F1 Las Vegas GP. So if you know anything about me, you know I love a few things in my life. I love video games. I love tech. I love traveling. I love copious amounts of ice cream. And there are few things I love more than Formula One. I've been watching Formula One my entire life. I started watching it with my dad. I think I've told you this, but it is one of the most exciting, crazy, anything can happen sports in the world. And as I've grown to appreciate it more because, you know, F1 athletes apparently are the fittest athletes in the world. They've got some of the strongest necks, which I know is a weird thing to think is cool, but I do. Because apparently their necks can sustain like 3, 4, or 5G, which is pretty insane if you know what a neck can usually handle. But anyway, I'm really excited because Formula One used to only be in Europe, and now one of the most exciting races of the season is in Las Vegas. Formula One has 2 kinds of races. You've got the races that are on tracks, and so those ones are really fun and fantastic. But then every now and again, you'll have a race that's on the streets of the city that it's in. And the F1 race in Las Vegas is one of those. The cars are out on the strip, racing around. I'm talking of hundreds and hundreds of miles per hour. The stuff you wish you could do, they do it for real. And Vegas is the best place for it. You get to go out, you get to see the drivers over the weekend, you get to hear the cars. And if you've never heard an F1 car, like you haven't lived. It literally sounds like the end and the beginning of the world at the same time. If you get a chance, try and go through the pit lanes if you have that opportunity. It's amazing. You get to see the cars up close, you get to see the technology, you get to see like even the tires. The tires are so impressive. But if you don't get the backstage experience, just go to the race. Wear a hat, cheer for a team. See people drive cars the way they're supposed to be driven, and then think to yourself, I could do that at home, but do not do it at home. That was F1 Love, brought to you by Las Vegas, hosting the upcoming F1 race, November 21 to 23. Tickets are available now by visiting f1lasvegasgp.com/tickets. There's got to be one chapter in this book that you enjoyed writing the most. Like
easy.
Yeah, you have like a guilty joy when it comes to certain topics. This is something I know about you. You have like you'll have like a giggle in you. You have like a mischievous feeling in you where you're like, ooh, I love that I'm getting into this. Like so what's like the most Gladwell chapter in this book?
It's the Harvard chapter.
The Harvard chapter? The admissions?
Yeah.
Let's talk through that.
It's all about this strange fact that there is no university in the United States that has more Division I varsity sports than Harvard. So everyone thinks that the sports-obsessed schools are like in the South. No. The most sports-obsessed school is Harvard. Not only that, they're so obsessed with that if you're an athlete, they have the front doors for smart kids who compete and it's really hard to get in the front door. They have a back door for athletes and rich people, of course.
Yeah, of course.
And the back door, it's way easier to get in. The simplest way to get into Harvard is to be a good athlete, not to be a good student. So the question is, why would they care so much about sports that they would like create a special back door for them and also play so many? And I think the answer is in the kind of sports they're playing. So what sports are, if they have all these rowing,
got it,
middleweight or heavyweight and lightweight rowing, and each team is like, what is it, 25? I've forgotten, some incredible number. Fencing.
Okay.
Fencing.
Sailing.
Oh,
how do we feel about sailing?
Sailing.
Tennis.
Interesting.
Tennis. Now, rugby. So you guys are Africans, particularly you guys are serious rugby playing people.
Yeah.
Understand that in the American context.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rugby's a very different animal. They're not playing rugby in the south side of Chicago.
Right.
Field hockey, squash. You can see where I'm going.
Yeah.
So they reserve. Now, you add up all those numbers, men and women, right? Coaches, kids sitting on the bench. You add all those numbers up and you see that they have reserved an entire huge pool of admission slots for white people with enough money to be good at white people sports.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing is like so hilariously obvious. And like they're pretending, for years they've been pretending, oh no, we believe the athlete brings something special to the camp. No, bullshit. Like I do this thing with tennis. In order to play Division I tennis in this country, you must have played junior tennis.
Okay.
In order to play junior tennis, your parents have to, I did the math, have to spend at a minimum $50,000 a year on your game, and probably north of $100,000 when you add up all the things. So basically what Harvard is saying is we've got whatever it is, 12 spots on our tennis team, which we are reserving for people who have parents capable of spending $100,000 a year on their games. Like, it's like, I mean, if you don't do this, if you have an elite school that just takes the smartest kids, what that means is your culture is going to turn over with each new wave of smart immigrants that come. Yeah. So you're going to be all Jewish in the 50s, then you're going to be all Korean now, and you're going to be all Nigerian in like 10 years.
I don't think that's a bad thing.
I think it's an amazing thing.
Why would you?
But you can't. But you can see how if your conception of what your school is a place where you have lots of preppy kids in blazers, you can't play that game.
Yeah.
Because you're going to wake up one day and you're going to have a lot of Igbo shouting at loud voices, running around your campus, and that's unthinkable.
It's funny that you say that, because I've noticed that in traveling the world, there are some cities in the world that have made it so that the area, like certain areas, are sort of dictated by who can just afford to buy there, right? Mm-hmm. So like there'll be parts of London, for instance, where I went like 20 years ago, and then it was like a certain group of people, and then all of a sudden and then it would like be Russian, and then it would be this, and then it would be that, and I was just like, oh wow, this whole area switched up, because the money is something that can shift to people and to cultures.
Yeah.
But now rowing and sailing and that doesn't change.
That does not change.
Do you know what I mean? Let me ask you a question, Malcolm. In the book, there are many moments where you talk about it's not necessarily the tipping point, but it's like some of the larger things that made something happen. Like, for instance, you talk about Will and Grace, you know, and you go, this is like the show that changes people's perspectives on gay people in America, etc. You know, and then some people would go like, but what about Ellen? Ellen was on before that. And in the opioid section, you know, when you're talking about the Sackler family, you're like, this is, you know, the story they told, and the passive voice when they're defending themselves, and you tell the story where some people might read it and go like, oh, but I actually think the issue is the doctors. Like, how do you choose to hone in, or where do you think you've actually found the real lever that has moved society or shifted in a certain direction versus others?
So the Will and Grace, let's do the Will and Grace one. That was really interesting. So there's a really brilliant woman whose work I read and loved by the name of Bonnie Dow, who does this kind of meta-analysis of television shows and their importance. And she looked at the way, including in Ellen, the way that television had described and discussed gay relationships. And she said that up until Will and Grace, every time gay people were talked about, even if they were talked about on television in a positive way, a series of rules were in place. The emphasis on the show was always about how straight people reacted to the gay person, not on the gay person themselves. The second thing was that the gay person's gayness was always a problem that had to be solved. And the third thing was that the gay person was always in isolation. So she looks at Ellen and she says, Ellen, yes, had a gay character, first openly gay character on network television, but those three rules were still in effect. When Ellen comes out in that pivotal sitcom show from whenever it was, all the rules are in effect. Her gayness is a problem her friends have to solve. The whole show is about her straight friends dealing with the fact that Ellen is like complicated their lives. And she has no gay community on those shows. It's just her. Will and Grace comes along and breaks all three rules for the first time on television. Will's got a community. It's got Jack, right? And that whole his gayness is not a problem to be solved. It's never even a problem. It's just a fact, right? And the show is not about straight people reacting to Will. It's about Will and Grace together reacting normally to, and that makes that show revolutionary. That argument to me is so, and if all you do is watch Will and Grace without the benefit of that kind of analysis, you miss it.
Yeah.
And there's an incredible book that was written about the way Hollywood treated homosexuality, pointing out that, look at all the movies in which gay people appear from the 60s through the end of the 90s. And this guy just counts up what happens to the character, the gay character. And like in 60% of the cases, the gay character dies. In 10%, they commit suicide. In 10%, they die of a drug overdose. Like, Hollywood just killed them off.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they did. And you were allowed to feel sympathy but they were always up. It was always this dreadful burden, right? And Will and Grace, it's not a burden. It's just like, it just
happens to be part of their lives.
It's just part of their life. And that is so, like, I feel like it is no coincidence. That's right around the time when the country wakes up one day, after flipping out about gay marriage, wakes up one day and just doesn't even say, I love gay marriage, just shrugs and says, are we really going to fight about this? And it just goes away.
So it's actually funny, when I was reading through that chapter, and when I was reading through some of the chapters about like over stories that you talk about, the story that is over every other story that we're telling ourselves. I don't know if you've watched it. There's an animated movie. I think it's Mitchells versus the Machines, I think it's called. And it's a story of this family that goes up against like machines taking over the world. And one day I was having a conversation with a group of friends, and someone said to me like, oh, I hated that movie. And I was like, really? It was a great movie. They're like, yeah, it was great, but I didn't like that at the end we learned that the main protagonist was a gay character. And I was like, why not? And they were like, why didn't we know from the beginning? I feel like you just tried to sneak it in. And I was like, well, are you pro? And she's like, no, I'm pro gay rights. And that's why I feel like it should have been. And then I said, I think that's been the problem with a lot of programming actually, is that because Hollywood as a whole, and obviously I'm using a big umbrella here, but because Hollywood as a whole, people forget is a business, they make these like fake stories and fake moves that are artificially trying to jump on trends that are not trends. Do you get what I'm saying? So they'll be like, oh, wow, gay people are becoming very popular in society. We need to make a gay show. And you're like, what is a gay show? And they're like, a show where a person uses their gayness to make sure that the community center doesn't get shut down. And it's like, guys, that's not a show.
Yeah.
That's not a thing. Gay people are not using their gayness to do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I actually think that becomes part of the problem is like now we are not witnessing people as human beings. The story is about you are black. And so now because of your blackness, you must make the blackity black. I was like, no, man, just make a story. And to your point, Will and Grace, it's like, Will and Jack they were gay, but the story wasn't like what gay thing gays them today. It was like, no, it's just a story. And you got to know them as human beings.
And the show is interesting because it puts a finger on the issue fundamentally was not that by the early 21st century, most Americans thought that there was something pathological about being gay, or that they had some revulsion at. No, it was quite specific. It was, they did not believe that gay people were capable of the same kind of relationships as straight people. It was that specific. It was about relationships. And that's why marriage was being denied. And that show is just about a successful relationship involving in the previous sort of, to get your point, Trevor, the preachiness assumed the problem was specific to something about the gay person and the way they practiced their life. No. It was a separate thing about could they participate in something that straight people have been participating in for thousands and thousands of years. And just getting people to say, oh yeah, they can participate. That's all we needed.
Yeah.
You didn't need to win the bigger battle.
Right. I've seen a few times how, so like for me, this is purely anecdotal, but in New York, I play football. I play soccer with a bunch of guys from all over the world, literally all over the world, all different walks of life. Like we have all of Africa on the team, and then we have Europe, and then we have Eastern Europe, and then we have like sometimes we'll have like Australia and Asia, and then America, obviously. But it'll be a collection, 22 guys from everywhere coming together. And one of the fascinating things I've noticed is we have built our relationships and our friendships and our perceptions of each other and each other's peoples without ever speaking about them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
When we come to the game, we play the game. I judge the other people by how they play the game, and they judge me by how I play the game. Badly, well on a day, terribly. But that's how we know each other. So you're like, Latif, why don't you do this? You always do this. Joe, why are you doing this? Ah, no, zero technique. You have zero technique. Why are you doing this? And it's like, shut up, Joe. And then like, what I realized the one day was almost magical is like everyone on that team has a human example of somebody from another country. So if you say to them, what are you Ugandans? They go like, oh man, I know this guy Joe, he's from Uganda. And it's like, oh, what are Ugandans? Then he's just like, you know him as a human being. Does that make sense? And I think sometimes like in these stories, we forget that we don't get to know people as human beings because we don't see them doing human being things. And then we give ourselves like when I say ourselves, I mean like, let's say the dominant group, you get to exist in your fullness.
Yeah.
And then everyone who's on the margins has to exist only in one area. It's like, all right, gay people, you get a day of pride, and then the rest of it is for straight people. And even then we're going to be like, why do you get a day? And you're like, well, every day is a straight pride day. Every day is like chinos and terrible shirts. It's like...
It's also, the soccer thing is great because the key to getting people, to making that magic happen is to have give everyone a job to do. You're all busy. Yeah. That's why it works.
Yeah.
Right? That's the kind of, I always put the busyness thing, if you're all focused on the game, you're exhausted, you're running up and down, who has time for all the nonsense?
Don't go anywhere, because we got more What Now after this.
Malcolm, I'm curious. You say you went back, read Tipping Point, and you're like, this is appalling, right? I'm interested about why it wasn't just an amendment, because most people would do like, there's a revised edition and you write a chapter and you say like, it's a summary. Why is it revisiting and it's a whole book?
Because I'm crazy.
Okay.
Because I don't have enough to do, because having two kids apparently is just really easy, and I can do, I got time.
I'm loving watching the difference in a man's perspective on having kids and a woman's. Malcolm's like, it feels like you have more time, and Cristiano's like, there's no time left.
My life is over. Malcolm's like, I wrote another book.
No, I've worked it out that I have 45 minutes to myself a day.
Okay.
Between 10 and 10:45. That's my time.
Okay. And you write your book.
That's all I got. That's all I got.
And you write your book.
No. No, I don't know. I also thought it would be fun. I actually I've been enjoying myself tremendously over the last, I've had a kind of, ever since I started the podcasting stuff, it's loosened me up about, I'm a lot less precious about the stuff I do, and I'm doing different kinds of stories, and my position now is why not?
Yeah.
And why not do something? It sounds like it'll be interesting. Who knows what'll happen? The turning point for me was when I started the podcast and I started doing weird shows on cranky kind of, going after golfers or whatever. And I was like, that was really fun. Like, I didn't realize that kind of thing. And then I did that audiobook with Paul Simon, with my friend Bruce, which, I don't really know that much about music. I know I like Paul Simon. And we just sat down with him, and it was just we did hours and hours of interviews with him, and it literally changed my life. I just realized, wow, I thought I was in this for the writing. I'm not. I'm in this because I like talking to people. I like interviewing them. That's what I like.
Yeah.
Right.
And when I realized that, I was like, oh, this clarifies everything. I shouldn't be obsessing about how I'm going to make a story out of this. I should be obsessing about the interview, the conversation. And so I did it again this summer with this incredible woman. And I met with her like 8 times. And she's someone who deals with trauma. I'm going to get emotional. She was involved with a guy on death row and she fails to keep him alive, to save him, and he gets killed by the state.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know what was going through her head when he died. That's what I wanted to know. And I decided I was going to take the long path. We took 16 hours, whatever it was, to get there.
Wow.
And then we kind of got there, and I was completely overwhelmed. I couldn't stop crying. It was so, and then I went back and I interviewed it was so unprofessional. I interviewed the guy's lawyer, and I had him tell the same story. And I couldn't stop crying. I had to end the interview. I was like, I'm sorry, sir, I can't It's just, but it was because I just made that investment, and I had just sat and listened, right? I realized at the grand old age of 61, I realized that's what I want to do. Like and there's a lot of that in this book. There's a lot of this just sitting and listening to people, like, and kind of trying to make sense of them.
What I'm hearing you say is something that I feel like we could all work on a little bit more, and that is being a little less serious about how we see ourselves in the world, because I think of the different paths, the different universes that Malcolm Gladwell could have been in. You could have been someone that got more serious and more prescriptive, and you could have written a book about, and now let me tell you, it's 20,000 hours, and here's what else you got to do. It's not just the windows, it's the doors and the floors and the sidewalks and you could have, no, you really. And I think there are people who do that because it becomes, again, going back to, it becomes their identity. So they're like, I've achieved success in this, I must hold on to it, and I need to do more of it. And then the second part of it is we forget to have like fun. We forget the fun side of life. We forget the enjoyment. We forget people are very like serious about things. I even noticed I was falling into it. Like if you asked me a question, I would give you like the serious answer first, but I'm not that person actually, and I've noticed it starting in America, to be honest. And like South Africa is very far behind, thank God. But like when I'm in South Africa, I realize I'm taking this far too seriously. I'm taking all of it too seriously. Do you know what I'm saying?
Can I tell you my South Africa story on this very fun?
Yeah, for sure.
Wait, I forget. The president of South Africa, his name is
Ramaphosa.
Ramaphosa.
Yeah. Cyril Ramaphosa.
So I'm at this conference in South Africa. Actually, that's when I texted you because I was walking around Cape Town and I was like, white people know their real estate. And then and Trevor's like, yes, they do. So I go to this conference and Ramaphosa is speaking. He gets up in front of the stage. He's like, and the lights go out, right? Because the power is always going off in Cape Town. And then there's silence. And then you hear Ramaphosa saying, it's all my fault. And the whole room just starts laughing. I was like, how many leaders of major countries in the world would make a self-deprecating joke at that moment? Because it's been a huge political issue for him.
It's been a huge issue.
And so what does he do? And it's like, it was hilarious. It's just hilarious. I was like, this is off topic, but I was chatting with all these people at this conference. And I'm talking about, I was like, haven't a lot of people been leaving South Africa? Aren't you worried? This guy says, no, it's the best thing. He's like, the only people left in South Africa now are the people who want to be here.
Yeah.
I thought that was fantastic. It like totally changed my perception of, it's like, that's right. They're the ones who are tough enough and are interested and committed. And and his point was like, let them go. We're here. It's beautiful.
Malcolm, if you want to revisit another book, I'll put Blink aside because Blink is one of my favorites. Outliers. This 10,000 hours rule. As a parent, I know a lot of people who've been parents for more than 10,000 hours.
Doesn't get any better.
They are terrible.
Terrible. Yeah.
And they raise rotten kids. Look at the world we live in. So many broken people who need therapy. I think we need to go back and look at the 10,000 hour rule.
No, you're absolutely right. Do you do this? I've started to do this now, and it's so terrible. I now, with no standing whatsoever, other than 3 years as a parent, I'm just openly critiquing people's parenting.
I'm very judgmental. Judging is fun. It's so fun.
I have to stop myself. Like, what are you doing? Like, you see later. You got to stop it. I'm Virgo. It makes it worse.
Oh yeah.
Have you found that your children have changed how you even look at data or storytelling or stories?
There's zero connection between any intellectual idea I've ever held and my parenting. This is another thing that's totally surprising.
No. I'm not saying your parenting. I mean more them being in your life. And then, like, for instance, I'm watching your face while you speak about them. Every mention of them, even the idea of them, your face lights up in a different way. Yeah. You laugh, you giggle, there's a different side of you that comes out. So I'm asking, how have they affected the way you see data or stories or the world or even your impact on it?
How you approach your work.
Yeah.
Because they always ask women this question. Yeah. So I like that Trevor's asking a man this question.
Well, I always joke that they're free content. I find them just endlessly hilarious, and it makes it very difficult for me to take other things as serious.
Oh, there you go.
So it is part of like, they just become the center of your universe, and like everything else sort of fades away in importance. Any disappointment I have is irrelevant to them. It's just so liberating. Like, they just, my 3-year-old this morning just wanted to like draw. She's making a picture she has a crush on the girlfriend of the nanny. It's the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. And she was making a picture for them.
Aww.
And that's what she's, and like everything else kind of, but it has, but I do understand, you do understand how powerless you are. It's just like, it's hilarious.
It's this surrender.
You just surrender.
But our kids are so different. My 4-year-old threw the most explosive tantrum in the Grove the other day, and the old man sitting next to us switched off his hearing aid.
Wow.
Wow.
He switched it off. And I was like, that's judging my parenting.
That's epic.
But he's great. But he has these moments of like, he becomes really
He's got high spirits, and you should have high spirits. That's a good sign.
Yeah. But then it was also, I have to surrender. That's all, that gentle parenting bullshit. Just ride the wave, and it will end.
You know what? In a few years, maybe in a decade, we'll get to relook at our parenting today, and we'll be like, maybe we could have been a little harsher. Maybe we could have.
Yeah, but
I have a theory.
Trevor wants to bring back beating kids.
No. Let me be on the record. Before we wrap this up, let me be on the record and say, I do not believe that I don't believe that parents should ever hit their kids. Ever. However, I do think other people should be allowed to hit your kids. Because then we've created, it's a community thing, and it's like parents can signal to other people that they need their kid disciplined. Then there's no conflict in your child's mind between love and discipline. Let's think, we don't have to solve it now. You go do the research. You think about it as a parent.
No,
I'm going to go formulate the idea, and then we'll come back.
I'm totally down with
Let's go back to the village.
I wish someone else from the table would come over
and
say,
saying. No, we could be helping each other.
100%. If I see you across the room at some restaurant,
anytime, signal me from afar. I will come over and I will do that for you. Malcolm, I know you've got to go now. I want to say thank you, man. Thank you for spending the time with us.
This is really fun.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm. That
was lovely, guys.
I want to see pictures now.
Oh, I'll show you a picture. I'll get my phone.
Hey. Hello, you. What's your name? Christiana. Namnonga.
7.
No.
Hello, Trevor.
How are you?
I'm well. I'm tired.
Tired?
You don't look tired. You look great.
You look fantastic. But wait. Tired from life or tired from... No, I always feel like you should ask people, because sometimes we ask people, how are you? Then they'll say tired. You think they mean they haven't slept. But what they mean is, I'm exhausted.
Tired of life? They're about to take their own life.
No. Why we not? Don't think of it like that. Think of it.
I'm on book tour. I've been traveling.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I just assumed you would know that that's what I meant.
I don't assume anything when people tell me how they are.
Some people find it invigorating, like going on the road, talking about their work. Okay, all right.
Really?
No,
it's
Trevor,
true.
We have people here that are like, I love
some
it.
people
I love
are.
it.
They just like they're like, I love getting out there and
meeting the people. And
No, I do. But after 5 days of doing that, when you haven't really slept, and I don't sleep well when I'm traveling. I don't sleep well in strange places and in hotel rooms.
Okay.
And I left Seattle at 4:30 this morning.
Oh okay. Yeah, then you should be tired.
Yeah. So I'm not at all suggesting that I don't like meeting my fans, because I actually do.
Yeah.
But no, it's a good problem to have. So
Sometimes I think the phrase "good problem" robs us of our ability to like feel what we're feeling. Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes people will say it to you almost like you're not allowed to feel something because of the position you're in relative to another position.
So you have to be grateful for the problem.
Yeah. People be like, wow, but these are good problems. Then I'm like, no, it's just a problem.
Just say it sucks.
I don't think it needs to be a good one. No, and I mean this for me. I'm completely projecting, by the way.
But I think it depends on the context, though. I think for me, it's a way of saying it is a problem.
Yes.
But I kind of like that I have the problem.
Okay.
Which is to say that I kind of like that people are interested in the book.
Yeah.
Right? If they weren't, I would not be traveling for the book. So, but I don't think, but I think when you say a good problem, you're already saying the problem part, no? I think if somebody said that to me, I would not take it well.
Okay,
I'd be like, you do not get to decide for me what my good problem is.
Oh, no, then we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Okay, no. Then
as
we're
long as you're
completely...
because sometimes there's like this, you have to embrace humility. You have to like coach couch everything you say in
Yes.
it's this, but I'm grateful. You know, that thing that you have to do. But sometimes you be like, traveling sucks. I hate hotels. I don't like the food. I miss my family. You know?
I don't do that fake.
Okay.
By the way, we poured you a fresh one if you want it.
Thank you.
Right now, we poured it. It's up to you.
I got this from Seth Meyers, so I'll drink that instead.
Christiana and I were chatting earlier about, first of all, your name and the fact that you are, I think, in many ways, a dying breed. Right? You said it beautifully. You said a literary giant.
Yeah, she's literary.
You just go Chimamanda, and people are like, oh wow, okay.
You just have to say one name. You don't have to say the entire
it's like being Beyonce, but in the world of books. do you know what I mean? There's no denying any type of art that comes with fame, then comes with the pressure. Mm. And in a weird way, I feel like art, for the most part, not to be highfalutin about it, but like art is almost supposed to be like bumping up against things all the time. It's sort of is accepted but not accepted, challenging but still accessible. It's like in this weird space. How do you feel about your fame relative to what you're doing? Like, do you feel it hinders you, or do you feel like it liberates you?
Neither. But hold on. But do you think, are you suggesting that fame means somehow that fame corrupts art?
So I think what happens oftentimes is fame interferes with how art can be perceived. That's what I think it does, right? Mm. So I'll speak through the lens of, let's say, stand-up comedy alone. Mm. Any comedian who's like worth their salt will tell you the difference in how an audience perceives a perspective or a joke when the comedian is famous is very different, because now they're not listening to what you're saying. They're trying to listen to it through the lens of them having a perception or an idea of who you are and where you are in relation to them. Mm-hmm. So they don't go funny, not funny, insightful, not insightful. They'll go, that's stupid for you. And I'm like, what do you mean that's stupid for me? I would have told that joke 10 years ago, or I like that style of joke. And they'll be like, yeah, but come on, you're Trevor Noah. I'm like, no, you see, that's where I feel like you're making the mistake.
It's like if you make a joke about traffic, people are like, well, you can get a helicopter, which I often say.
Exactly. Yeah, you love saying that. You love saying that. No, but I mean, I think of it like, and sometimes we only afford this to artists, for instance, let's say actual painters, when they're dead. I love how much gravitas is awarded to, let's say, Picasso for a random napkin sketch. Mm. People are like, oh, look at this Picasso sketch. And you're like, guys, it's like a stick figure. Yes, but even in it, you can see it harkens to his view of the world. I'm like, guys, the guy was just sketching on a napkin. Yes, but it was Picasso's sketch. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So how do you feel about it?
About fame, I don't think about it, really. I mean, but here's why. I think of fame, and it's such a strange thing. I don't even know what to do with my face when I'm saying, I think of fame. But it's kind of like I know, but honestly, just think, but it's just, I don't think of, I think that when I'm writing fiction, because that's, for me, there are distinctions in what I do and in how much they mean to me. So fiction is the thing I love. Like, okay. I really think it's my vocation. I think it's the reason I'm here. I really believe that. I really believe that I have an ancestral gift. So with fiction, nothing else matters. When I'm writing, I don't remember that I'm supposed to be this famous person when I'm writing fiction. When I'm done writing fiction and I'm editing it and someone else is sort of, there's an editor looking over it, that's when I sometimes have to think about audience. But even then, I almost never change anything. Because for me, fiction is almost, it's sacrosanct. I don't think about my audience. It's truly almost magical, honestly. But the other things, I can tell when people are bullshitting me, when people say, I love your work. And I'm thinking, no, you don't. Right? You actually don't. But
have you told anyone that?
Some, yes.
Good, I love that.
Oh, wow.
I love that.
That is the most Nigerian thing I've ever come across.
She's a real Igbo woman.
No, I mean, I'm sitting next to, this is like, wow.
It's too much for Trevor.
No, I mean, this is amazing.
But I think it can be a good thing, right? For someone, and usually it's my wonderful Nigerians. Oh, Chimamanda, I love your work. And so I said to him once, I was like, which one have you read? He said, I've read them. I said, which one have you read? He's like, the one about Biafra. I said, okay, what happened in it? So he starts laughing. And then he tells me, I'll read it. And then when it's people, when it's non-Nigerians, usually I can tell, but then I'm slightly gentler because sometimes non-Nigerians don't know how to handle the sort of Nigerian directness.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think in general, because I wanted to be read, I've always wanted to be read. And I really do feel very grateful. You know how you said people have to say that, but I am actually quite grateful to be read. But I think fame was never a thing that I sought. Mm-hmm. And in some ways also because I'm not on social media, because I sometimes I'm still surprised. I'm just like, oh, so that person actually knows me. So I'm not, it doesn't occupy me.
Was that an intentional choice to not be on social media?
Yes.
What was it?
Self-preservation.
Huh.
So not in a high-minded way, by the way. Just because I know that I will get into fights with people and it will not end well. So I thought...
So you're the person you would reply if somebody at you and says something.
I would find where you lived and come to your house.
That's how we met.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
That's how Christiana
I'd love to tell the story. It's crazy. When Trevor first got his job at The Daily Show, he had a guest on that I didn't agree with, that I thought he shouldn't have had it. I stand by that. Uh-huh. And
does this guest have a name, perhaps?
Yeah, Tommy Loren.
Yeah.
And it was like a super viral interview, and there was lots of reactions. And credit to Trevor, he came across tweets where I was critical of him in a very respectful way, I think. I wasn't
how you were critical?
Not critical. I was just discussing. I was discussing the fact that he'd had this guest on his show, and because he disagreed with me, he followed me. He was just like, I don't think she's right, because he stands by why he had the interview, which I love about him, and someone reached out to me, was like, oh, Trevor Noah's a fan. Do you want to, what have you thought about working at the show? And the Nigerian in me was like, this man is trying to trick me and tell me off. That's the first thing I told my parents. I was like, I got this email. I think this man is trying to trick me and he's holding a grudge because I said he should have that girl on the show. But there was like that.
No, but I see why though.
Yeah.
I understand that.
But we engaged in a few conversations where he was like, you've made me think I don't necessarily agree. We had a few exchanges, not disrespectful ones, but like, Trevor's very kumbaya, but I'm a child of Biafra, so I always want to fight. So there's that, I think there's that, not tension, but we bring different things to how we approach
it's
things.
Completely great. I think like what I connected with you on was most important for me is like, and you know this, even till this day, I don't care about agreeing with people, but I love a well-structured argument. I love an idea that makes me think.
Yeah.
And then something for me to butt up again. I actually find it boring when people all hang out in a group and agree with each other. I personally think we're losing a lot of that.
Yep.
Like we live in a world now where we go, I don't agree with you, so it's finished.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, but guys, if I was to get rid of everyone in my life who I didn't agree with on an issue, I would have no one in my life.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, this is a gospel that needs to be preached more in America.
You think in America particularly?
Yes.
Tell me
this
more.
is not the case in Nigeria, for example, and I would argue in most of Africa. People know that you can disagree with a person and still have a relationship with them. I think what's happening in the US is a kind of, this kind of practice of purity, this kind of... you have to have these particular views, otherwise, and then the moralizing of opinion. So somebody feels a certain way about something. It's not just that you think they're wrong, it's that you think that they're bad people. And I think that moralizing then means like, because you think this way, you're a bad person and I cannot talk to you and you cannot be in my life.
Yeah.
I think it's a particularly American thing. I really think so. And it's quite contemporary. I mean, it's recent. I came to the US in 1997. I don't think America was like that when I came to the US. I think it's recent.
Do you find it like that?
Well, I came to America in 2014, and I say this a lot, and maybe I'm coming from like a Western lens of being in the UK and communicating with my friends in the UK. I think in the UK also people are wearing their politics more, or whatever their label of whatever you identify as, whether Republican, Democrat, Socialist or whatever. And that is being at the front of a conversation in a way that is tainting how you can experience a person in real life.
Yeah.
In a way that I didn't feel when I first came to America.
When you first came?
Really?
When I first came, yeah. Because remember, I came when Obama was still in power.
No, you're not wrong, actually.
Yeah, when I came at the tail end of Obama, everyone assumed Hillary would win. And to be a Trump voter was a very quiet thing. I mean, we only discovered there were so many voters when the guy won. Because it was just those red hat people over there. You never thought it was the people around you. And I think there became this scrutiny after Trump won. Like, did you vote for him? Did you vote for him? I think you voted for him. Like that suspicion.
Yeah.
Or people who weren't in active mourning that Hillary wasn't president. And then it changed the timbre of our interactions in a way that I don't think we've recovered from or gone back to. And I think that's even deepened now in his second term.
And you know, I always try and grapple with this. I try and figure out, especially now because I spend more time in South Africa than I've done over the past 10 years. So when I was doing The Daily Show, most of my life was just in America, and in the US, I couldn't really leave much. And now I get to spend more time going back to South Africa and traveling around. And one of the biggest things I've realized is in America, more than most places I've been to, people wear their politics as their culture. But where I'm from, your culture is your culture.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
So no one would dare say where I'm from, I am a Republican or I am. No. I'm Xhosa, I'm Zulu, I'm Tswana, I'm Pedi.
But that's also because our politics in Africa is not ideological, though.
Oh, what do you mean? What do you mean by that?
But it's not, though. Is there in South Africa a party that you could say is on the left and on the right and in the center based on their policies? You know,
now, I know it sounds crazy, but because of Trump, they're emerging in some ways. But previously, there wasn't. Let's put it this way. All the major parties in South Africa will have very similar promises or ideals. They just have differences on how they believe they're going to get there. So most of them wouldn't argue that healthcare is a right. They all go like, no, everyone should have healthcare and there should be free education. But then they'll argue about the permutations of how to get there. And I think that, you know, in agreeing with what you're saying.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking about I think that this kind of polarization, even that word I don't like, I think it preceded Trump.
Interesting.
I think Trump made it worse, but
I felt it with Trump.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a result of like the bubble I was in myself.
Yeah.
I just think we're in a time where people feel really defensive about what they believe, and there's not much space for negotiation.
I felt a lot of that reading your book.
Which we actually read, by the way.
You did read it.
Yeah,
I loved it. I loved it so much. Oh, I loved your work. Your book was fantastic. I loved it.
I love that one you just did.
No, I read it. Cover to cover. This is how much I read it. I remember the first 50 pages. I thought it was like a memoir. I know this is crazy to you. Please don't get me wrong. I opened and I was like, oh, is this like your nickname? And are you telling me your real story? No, I'm being serious. And then I started Googling your father. I was like, wow, I knew he did statistics. I didn't know that he was this mega rich person. And I was like,
she's owed money.
I was like, yeah. And I was like, what do I not know about this person that is now changing how I see this? And I'm reading the book and nothing that I'm Googling is coming together. No, because I think in the way that it's written, it really felt like a personal account, you know, from how, like most of the time, when I read a novel, it is told sort of third person. Then she went and did this, then they were. Yeah. This felt like a me story from the beginning.
Yeah, you're immersed into this world of COVID.
Yes. COVID.
And the people arguing
on
family.
I'm so amused that you then went to Google to think, wait, this doesn't sound right.
No, I was. But I would love to know what inspired, or like, because you live in a world of fiction, you can go anywhere.
Yes.
Because
Trevor,
you live in a world.
You do know that there is such a thing as the first person narration.
No, I do. I understand this. I understand this completely. But what I'm saying is oftentimes the first person narration isn't so closely tied to the author. I love that you find this so amusing. No, I'm just saying for me.
But also it's a wonderful compliment. Can I just say that? Because it means that you so believed this world that I created.
Only for the first 50 pages. By the time once we started getting to like Zikora's story, and once we were in like, you know what I mean, Kadiatu's stories, I was like, okay, I knew what was happening. Give me some credit. But I'm just saying, for the first 50, I was like, this is I even was planning, my first question to you was going to be like, how do your friends feel about the stories you've revealed about them? The things you've said about their sex lives. I was like, wow, I mean, Africans are generally conservative. How can you...
Africans are so private.
I was like, you've told this, your closest friends, the sex that she's having with her husband. And Oh, wow. And the fact that he ravaged her in a way that she had never been ravaged. I was like, damn, this is... Wow.
He said that it felt like sneaking into a diary entry.
It really did feel like that.
Initially.
So I would love to know the why, because you talk about the world we're in now, and you mentioned it as well. How much of the world we're in now influenced this book? You know, in you going, I think, like, why is the book set in and around COVID? It takes place right before COVID and then into COVID and then sort of out of COVID. Why does it take place then? Why does it take place, you know, at liberal American universities? Why does it take place in this moment in time is what I'd love to know.
Because I'm interested in this moment, because I think, well, COVID is, I think for a writer, COVID is gold, because especially lockdown. Lockdown was so surreal, so unique, so original that you cannot but use it. It's like perfect material, because you can do anything with lockdown. And I think people reacted to lockdown in such different ways. So you kind of start with lockdown was your canvas, and you can really do anything with it. So I remember, I'm not sure, I didn't set out to, I don't even think of it as a COVID novel. I think of it as, because COVID in some ways is only a, so you want a character who's looking back. You want a character who I'm very interested in looking back. I'm almost addicted to nostalgia. I'm kind of always, you know, and a kind of melancholy as well. COVID just felt to me the perfect setting to have that character look back. Right, so she's locked down. She's alone in her house, and she looks back. So I think if COVID hadn't happened, I suppose I would have made her fall sick, and then be in hospital.
Okay, you wanted to isolate her to look back on her life.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. It's not that I think that COVID had any. Well, it's up to the reader. I was going to say I don't think COVID has any particular meaning in the novel. But I think it's to say that the sort of authorial intent was not to make COVID a character, really, but to make COVID backdrop. Because I think that COVID, I don't think I've written, this is not the COVID novel, because I think there's just so much more that would have to be in it to make it the COVID novel, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand.
What novel would you say it is then?
Love, dreams, a certain kind of melancholy, longing.
Yeah.
I think it's my most grown-up novel, which is to say that it's my most the novel in which I'm most willing to acknowledge, even embrace uncertainty. And I don't need to have all the answers, and I don't need to have it all together. I feel like I had a sense of responsibility with Half of a Yellow Sun, for example. Yeah. And with Americana, I was setting myself free from being the good daughter of literature. I was like, I'm just going to do what I want, and I'm going to. And now I feel like I've grown up. So dream counts. Yeah. I mean, of course, it's also my diary, as Trevor said.
It feels like it to me.
It's not
it really does.
That's the best thing I've heard in a long time.
It really is. To me,
so adorable.
To me, it feels, and you know why it feels like a diary is to what you're saying about like love, right? Every single one of the stories in the book, I think are in many ways an honest reflection of how we experience love in our lives. Funny enough, men and women. I was honestly intrigued by that part of the book. I was going, was it an intentional choice that you made to sort of keep us blind from how the men were experiencing the love and only have it be how the women were thinking that the men were experiencing the love?
Yeah. Because I don't know how the men were experiencing it.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
Because it's a book about women's lives.
So that's interesting, because like Darnell and, all of these horrible men in the book, their interior lives.
They were not horrible.
I found them, it's my reading.
Okay.
What?
I found a lot of them horrible.
Oh, come on.
How did you find the most horrible?
Oh my God. Well, you guys know I'm anti-men in general, but
yes.
What? Yeah. My life is just filled with brilliant women.
Yeah, well, okay. Because I have some pretty good men in my life, and I don't know that I could have that rule.
Are they like brothers, family members,
friends.
Yeah, I just speak to them during night between 9 to 5.
So, but really, back to Trevor's question. Who did you? Wow. Yes, we know that you're.
Okay, so in terms of who disturbed my spirit the most, that like left me vibrating a bit, Kwame. And that's because I'm postpartum myself, and those scenes of Zipporah like knowing her mother in a new way because of the vacuum of that man not being there was really beautiful to me, because me and my friends talk about all the time, like it took us becoming mothers to actually see our mothers as girls, and like it's a dialogue we're constantly having. Kwame, because of how he behaved and how his family behaved, that created a resentment. I'm like, that's not an honorable person. So like, to me, that's like a horrible man.
That's lovely. No, I love that you're thinking about such things as being an honorable person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of being in love is that you are not, in fact, sophisticated. I mean, there's a kind of lowering of your, just every imaginable barrier and guard that you have when love happens, I think. And Kwame, okay. I mean, could we have some empathy for Kwame? I don't know.
Oh, interesting. Tell me, can you go into that a bit more?
I would love. No, I'm now intrigued.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what happened.
But on the empathy point, when people listen to this after they've read the book,
yes,
what would evoke empathy?
I mean, I think the question with Kwame would be why. I mean, what do you think happened? I just feel like something must have happened to him. Speaking of trauma and trauma response, maybe it was a kind of exaggerated trauma response.
This is what I felt while reading the book as a man.
Okay.
I felt like it was, and I'd love to know your perspective as the author, but it's like everyone sees love from their point of view, you know?
Yeah.
Everyone in every story that they tell makes sense from their point of view. So whenever someone's telling me their love story, I've met very few people who tell me the love story where they are the villains in it. I meet very few people who are aware of the elements that they contributed. And I'm always intrigued by that. I'm always intrigued by how people will tell you a love story where they've just been slighted. Yeah. The world has done them wrong. They just keep bumping into these wrong characters. And I'm like, yeah, I know this may be true, but that's only one half of the story.
On, but is this, do you mean women and men?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, completely. You don't agree?
No, I'm just curious. So men tell love stories about how they were
completely. Huh. I think the difference with men for the most part is because we aren't really comfortable with our emotions and naming them, and we don't spend as much time in them, especially with our friends. I think we will water them down, or we'll compress them into a simple feeling like anger. I'm angry. You know, we'll very seldom say like, I felt ashamed. We'll very seldom say like, I felt inadequate. It's just angry.
Yeah,
it's a simple one. But I think men will tell very similar stories to, to the ones that I found in your book, where I'll say to a man, friend, what happened? Yeah, she was this and she was that. And it wasn't gonna. And I go like, okay, but I understand you, but what was the we? Right? Because every love story has to have a we.
Yes, Trevor, but I'm just worried that we're sort of going into the both sides territory. I think that there are some relationships where one person is the asshole.
Oh, completely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's completely true.
And that asshole may not acknowledge that they were the asshole, but it doesn't mean that they're not. I just feel as though reading this book that's about women's stories about men, I'm struck by how it's been out, 2 weeks. I'm struck by how many people have said to me, what about the men? What about the men's stories? Which is what Trevor is doing.
Yeah. Whoa, and I didn't say that. We can rewind the tape. I didn't say that. I did not say that. Whoa,
you did.
Don't you dare get me.
You did.
Don't put me out like that.
You said, how do the men, you said something about what about the men's point of view?
I didn't say what about the men's point of view. I would never say that. What I was asking you, because remember, you're the author, you're omnipotent. So what I was asking you was if you chose to keep it opaque on purpose, so you didn't give us the answers about why that happened. The answer doesn't have to do with like the man's point of view, but it's the answer nonetheless. So many of the characters, they don't know why it happened. The person disappears, but they never get the closure. They never get the answer. They're left with this ghost that haunts them. And so what I was asking is like, if you did that on purpose, I don't want to know like, oh, but what was his version of it. I'm more intrigued by why you left us with characters that were sort of unresolved in the answer that they were looking for. That's what like I found like a hook. Does that make sense? And I think there's a difference between the two.
No, there isn't.
Oh, okay.
Because that was very cleverly done, but no, but anyway, it doesn't matter because it just struck me because I think that there is a kind of expectation we have, I think, that in reading that we, maybe even unconsciously, that we still look for the men, if that makes sense. I think if it were a book about men telling their stories, that I don't think as many people would have asked me, well, but what did the women think?
I would have.
Not that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you definitely would have.
But we all know that you're different. Yeah. But anyway, so Trevor, what else do you want to know?
No, I want to know everything. I would actually like to know as well, like, you know, and maybe it's because of Christiana's, like, I mean, just presence in my life as a person. I think you were, other than my mom, probably the woman who's given me the most insight into the, like, just like the nitty gritty of like ugly womanhood, if I'd call it that, you know, as ineloquently as unvarnished completely. And this book, in a really weird way for me, felt like an extension of the conversations I've had with Christiana. And like when we're talking about the inner workings of a woman's body and how it's quote unquote betraying her in some ways and how it's not doing what it's supposed to do for her. And then like even the frustration, you know, there's one line which I'll misquote, but it was essentially something to the effect of how, I forget which character was saying this, but they were basically saying there was almost like a resentment in the fact that their future and the dream and the life they were looking for was tied to men. They couldn't achieve that dream without the man being attached to them.
Yeah,
and
one of my favorite lines is the character that basically says, when you get married, they leave you alone, even if you divorce them. I was like, this is such brilliant Nigerian logic. But it's the truth, because like, so many of my friends just said, I just got married for freedom. Freedom from the questions, from the judgment.
Oh, because your family leaves you alone. Yeah.
Now you're in your husband's house. I'm not even going to complain about the things you do because you're under his dominion.
Right.
So to speak. Yeah.
And often you're actually not.
You know.
But it's a perception people have. Right? So you're in your husband's house. Nobody knows what you're doing, or what sort of life you actually have. So for many women, it's a kind of freedom, really, in a strange kind of way, in a perverse kind of way. Obviously, we want to live in a world where a woman doesn't need to do that to achieve freedom. But if you live in a society that imposes that kind of thing on you,
it would be nice to be in a society that doesn't impose that.
Yes. But that's the reality.
Yes, which is why it can then be a kind of strange freedom.
Which is so unvarnished, because that's not necessarily a thing, even as direct and honest as us Nigerian women are, is what we'd say in a forum that is not private. You know what I mean? It was just like, I felt like in moments you're in the inner sanctum of the things women say to each other that they don't tell other people, that I sometimes tell Trevor.
I felt like that about a lot of it. And I actually had that as a question as well, was, you know, it's strange when it's a novel. I feel like when it's nonfiction, it sort of has a very direct approach. With fiction, like most art, it's at the discretion of the artist. How much are they revealing to you and how much are they not? How much of the book are you intending as a direct commentary on society, and how much are you allowing to live in a complete fantasy? Like, are these rich Africans on purpose? Are they interacting with white liberals on purpose? And if, because I think you're very intentional, I'd love to know like the why. Like, what are you hoping to reveal to us through those things? Like, you know, it becomes so much more complex, but why do you choose it?
I don't know. I really don't know. See, this is the thing about writing fiction. I don't like the why questions. Because there's a lot that's not. I am intentional. I hate that word, about lectures and essays. Right? I can tell you what I had in mind for The Danger of a Single Story, for example.
Yeah.
But with fiction, it's different. It's so rich African, because it's true. I mean, because I'm interested in. So I think I write about things that I'm interested in, obviously, right?
Okay.
So when you talk about academia, American academia, I'm interested in that. It's also a world I kind of know because I've spent time there. And so I can write about it with a kind of authority and authenticity, I think.
Yeah.
But it's also because I'm interested in all of the the permutations of American academia. I think dream count. I don't like the why questions. I think you could say that dream count is. I think in some ways it's part satire, especially the bits that are about academia.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but I think as satire always does, there's truth there. Like I'm kind of holding up a slightly mocking mirror to certain things that happen. But I mean, there's also, obviously, I'm writing realism. And so it's kind of, when you say people who read Dickens, and there's a sense in which you could say reading Dickens can give you a clearer sense of London at the time, clearer than reading history. Do you see? I mean,
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah,
yes.
I kind of like to think that that's what I am doing with my fiction, which is I'm creating art, but there is, of course, also a kind of social and political component to it.
Yeah.
But I don't set out to, I like to think that my points are more blurred in my fiction. So in other words, if I had to write an essay about American academia, I think it would be very blunt.
We're going to continue this conversation right after this short break.
I'm interested because we kind of started this where we're talking about, you don't look at the fame, you don't think about audience.
For fiction.
For fiction. Are there moments when you're writing fiction when you're like, that feels, I can't go there?
Never.
Never?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
So it's kind of, there's a fearlessness that comes with the fiction.
Yeah. I call it a radical honesty.
Okay.
And that's the only way that I can feel happy. Fiction really makes me happy when it's going well. Really makes me happy. And I can tell there are a few times in my life when I've held back in my fiction, and I can tell.
Okay.
I can tell that I am, in some ways it's like letting yourself down. I can tell.
Can you say when you felt you held back?
In some of the stories in The Thing Around Your Neck, I think that I held back in a way.
Why did you? I know you don't like the why questions, but why did you?
No, this is a different one, a different kind of why question. I guess because I just felt like maybe I just shouldn't go there. Maybe I shouldn't be as honest as I think. Maybe I shouldn't let this character be its full self in a way, his or her full self. I don't know. But anyway, the point is, I think if I learned anything from doing that, it's that it just doesn't make me happy. It doesn't feel true. It doesn't feel authentic. So some of those short stories I don't like, actually. But no, dream count, no. I don't hold back. I go where the character takes me. It's a revelation.
And you have some very direct
from
characters.
above. Yes. But I also think, I feel so strongly about literature and about fiction. I think it's our last frontier. It's only in literature that we can learn things that we cannot learn anywhere else. So journalism cannot tell us about human motivation. Journalism cannot go deep into like the terrain of the human heart, which I think is really key for almost everything in the world. I mean, I really think the psychology of people can explain so much about the world. I mean, just the psychology of the people who are in leadership positions, I think, journalism can't do that. Politics doesn't do that. To write nonfiction, especially about other people's lives, is to be constrained by certain things that you cannot possibly know. But I think fiction lets you just, it's the essential thing I think that we need when it's done well.
That kind of...
As was done in this case.
Yeah, and I was going to say that brings us to one of the characters in the book is based on a woman who exists in real life. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, inspired by her. The legal department of my publishers.
Yeah. Inspired by?
Yeah, we need to use the right language.
Okay.
Inspired by
Okay.
her. So inspired by. So I remember when did you follow the story of Dominique Strauss-Kahn?
I didn't actually.
I did at the
No,
time,
I now went and read
That's
up
so
on it
interesting.
backwards. Yeah, it wasn't. I don't think it was really that big in South Africa when this was happening.
It was big in the UK. It was big in Europe. It was a big story.
Yes, and in the US. I mean, until the case was dropped. So this woman who was from Guinea and who worked as a hotel housekeeper accused him of raping her. So she walks into the room to clean it, and there's a naked white man running toward her. And I remember when I first heard about it, I was just riveted by it. And it was also very melodramatic. He was arrested he was already inside the plane, about to fly to Paris.
Oh, wow.
Where he would then have started his campaign for president. It was almost a done deal that he was going to be the next French president. And so he's arrested, and Americans, as is their wont, did this very dramatic thing of parading him in front of journalists, which I hate.
The perp walk.
I think it's a terrible thing.
Why? Why do you think
Because I think, especially when it comes to sexual assault cases, we really have to be very careful to get it right. Because the world is so deeply immersed in misogyny that there are people looking for the smallest reason to discredit a sexual assault case. And so you imagine the misogynist just aching to say things like, see, this is wrong. We don't know if he did it or not. You're already parading him. I wish they had kept it very quiet. I wish they had gone to court. I wish they had found him guilty. I wish they had publicized the evidence. That would have made me very happy. Because then I think the story would have ended differently. But anyway, so he's arrested and he's let out on bail. And then we're all kind of looking forward to the trial. And then at some point, the case is dropped. And the case is dropped because they said she had lied on her asylum application. And I just remember thinking, I was just shocked. I really was. I almost couldn't believe it. And also just the way that his lawyers talked about her. They just kept repeating liar and lied, liar.
Yeah.
And for the average person watching this, your assumption is going to be that she lied about what had happened. And I think this was also I think they deliberately did that. But in fact, they said she lied about her asylum. And my thinking is, what we're saying to women is, if you ever expect to get justice for sexual assault, then you better be perfect. Like, you better be sinless.
Right.
Which therefore means you better not be human because we're all flawed. I found it really, I felt hurt actually, and also very angry. So I wrote this very angry essay, nonfiction.
Very blunt.
Which was, my point was, this is bad. And I think I framed it in a kind of, America is not like not like Nigeria, not like Guinea. In Guinea and Nigeria, the big man would probably not be arrested at all. So that America did this was wonderful. I felt very heartened by it. But America has disappointed me and in some ways has failed this woman. But I didn't think I would write fiction about her. I didn't plan to. So when I started writing this novel, again, a character came to me. And so I think it means that even without knowing it, I carried her with me. And then suddenly, something drops into your life and changes it forever. For me, there was just a great sadness there. Like I felt so upset on her behalf. But anyway, so I wrote this character who is not really her because I've invented this character's past life. I've invented this character's interior life. But I have kept the one story about Nafissatou Diallo, that's her name. The story that Nafissatou Diallo tells about what happened in that hotel room. I've kept as close as possible to that version. Because I just think that it's in some ways, I think it's a way of paying tribute to her, but also it's about so many women like her. It's about women who are powerless and who are not allowed to have dignity. The way she was, the way they talked about her, just it wounded my African spirit.
My parents were all in Wute.
It wounded. It wounded me because I just thought this is so wrong. And even the interviews that I kind of fictionalized it in the novel, but there's an interview where I'm watching her and I'm thinking, they haven't done this right. English is not her native language.
Right.
And so you're asking her about something so intimate and so difficult in a language that she doesn't really speak well. It cannot go well. In some ways, you're setting her up to look as though she's lying. And I remember a friend of mine who said to me at the time that she had watched the interview and she said, oh, I don't believe her because she was so dramatic. She was using her hands too much. And that made me very angry as well. I thought, first of all, you don't understand. There's an African world in which that is not dramatic.
We gesticulate all the time.
That is the norm. But also, this woman was put in a position where she had to make up for what she lacked in her ability to express herself.
Right.
So anyway, all of that is to say this character is inspired by Nafissatou Diallo, but isn't her.
You know, it's interesting that you say the thing about the public trials and all of it. I don't know if this is still true, but I believe in Germany, when a case is happening, when it's, when you're being investigated, the press isn't allowed to report on it. And they have a very strict system that tries to prevent the press from sensationalizing the case in any way. So it's supposed to be the way you're saying, which I actually think would be good for everyone involved, because I think, number one, there's nothing worse than a public trial because it does not have any of the respect nor the expertise of a trial, right? The most recent example, let's say like the Diddy thing. The amount of random stuff that now comes up doesn't help anything. So what happens is someone can put up a fake piece of a fake, deposition or whatever it might be, and it sullies somebody's case that's not involved with that. Do you know what I mean? But it's just
the spectacle of it all.
It just creates noise, and it creates. Another example is the Luigi Mangione.
Oh, but we like to see Luigi.
Yeah, but what I was saying is, I was going like, you tell me how you have that trial when publicly they've already said, the shooter. And when he shot, and how do you now then have a trial of somebody when that's already been done? Yeah. And you see, it's interesting when you say that and you talk about the perp walk. Yeah. I can think of maybe at least 10 examples in the book where the fiction of this book still comments on the realness of America, and it's like a critique on it. So, American academia, how people are discussing issues in and around the world, and how they feel they can and cannot have the discussions. The justice system.
The character says, in America, money is justice.
Yes.
Which was very powerful to me because you just sue.
Yes.
Yeah. That's like...
And I should say that I agree with the character in my just utter horror of this. Yeah. I remember when I came to the US and they would say things like, oh, something terrible happened, but the family got money. Somebody was shot maybe, and then somebody be like, oh, the family got money. And I'm thinking, yeah, but why are you talking about it like that's sort of, somebody died, Yeah,
but fundamentally, that's what America was based on. And I think every culture thinks that justice is the thing that the culture most values. You don't think so? Think about if I think about like some parts of South Africa, I remember talking to Kaya about this, friend of mine from South Africa, and his grandfather was a chief in the village. And if they found someone, very seldom, but if somebody stole something or if they did something wrong, you just get beaten, right? You would. You wouldn't get arrested. You wouldn't get put away. You just get beaten, and then they would talk to you and say, please don't do that again. That's all it was. And him and I were joking about it, saying it's interesting how in that setting in particular, in like a village, where many of our grandparents grew up, that was the thing that you like.
Wait, so what was valued? Violence?
No. It was the other way around. Our culture valued non-violence, and our culture valued like the culture itself. It was like a very that's not the thing that we want. Do you understand what I'm saying? If the violence takes away from you the thing that the culture holds most valuable, I find. So in some parts of the world, time is the thing that they really look at. Other places in the world think that shame is a more powerful tool. So their sentences may not be as long, but how they handle the case is worse. But I feel like in America, because money, whether we like it or not, money is like almost the foundation of America.
Yeah.
They go, then if we give you money, you have been made whole. And the other person lost money, so they've really been punished.
And also now money being speech.
Yeah.
I mean, in this country, officially.
Oh, completely.
Yeah, Citizens United. But anyway, let's talk about Dream Count.
But I feel like Dream Count is everything.
I agree with you.
Like, for instance, academia. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
It felt like the book was making a criticism of how America's liberal academia treats discussions, contrarians, arguments, etc. And I found myself reading it going I was like, oh, I wonder how much of this Chimamanda thinks, or is it just the character that's thinking it? Like, what do you think of the current state of America's academia and how students are taught to think or not think?
I think that's fairly obvious.
No, is it though?
I think it's a fair read, and actually, it's a reading that I agree with, which is that yes, the book is clearly not enthusiastic,
right,
about the form and even the function of American academia today. I mean, obviously. But so you have a woman who's Nigerian and who doesn't know anything about that whole thing.
Yeah.
Who comes looking for something better than she is, right? So she's come from a life in Nigeria that she thinks she kind of wants to atone for.
Right.
In a way. And so America becomes this, I want to find something noble and beautiful and good and honorable. Because America is aspirational still, even to people who know that it's a very complicated place. There's still an aspirational element to America. And so she comes and she wants to do a master's and she wants to study pornography. I think we should be able to say that.
Yeah,
Yes?
you can say that. Yes.
Okay. So pornography. And she, so it's interesting for me, it's the writer, to look at this world from the point of view of a person who just does not know it and is not familiar with it. So
Yeah.
this person is just taken aback, surprised, just like, what is going on? And also then she becomes so disillusioned by it. I think if someone wants to read that as a cautionary tale, I'm not opposed to it.
Okay.
I mean, this is what can happen, which is you can make people lose that thing in them that wants to be better and dream and aspire. There's something actually, I think, quite cynical about, and it's not an obvious cynicism, but there's something quite cynical about the way that academia operates. It doesn't feel to me, I don't know, there's something, the beautiful things that are lacking. So it's not just about letting our imaginations be free and we should be able to exchange ideas. It's also just more fundamental things like compassion, and I don't even like to use kindness because that word is so overused and always by people who are spectacularly unkind. So I will not use kindness, but compassion. Do you?
No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Empathy.
Yes. The ability to understand that there are multiple points of view in the world. It's a very strange thing because, and I'm a person who grew up on a university campus, so academia has always been part of my life. Like it's I get into a university campus anywhere in the world and I'm already at home. Like it's just, I feel comfortable. And you will think, and this is what it was like in Nsukka when I was growing up. It was a place of manyness, it was multi ideas, people.
Right.
And that's not the case in America. It's not the case at all. And sometimes it's difficult to talk about because you don't want to, sometimes one doesn't want to agree with one's enemies. So that people...
And who are your enemies?
That's amazing.
There are people on the political right in this country who I think just espouse the most ridiculous ideas, but who also criticize American academia. Mm-hmm. And I think there's truth there. But acknowledging that I just think, oh my Lord, I don't agree with these people. But my feelings come from a different place. Comes from love. Comes from wanting this thing that I love to be better. That's where it comes from.
How or what would your advice be if, let's say there's an aspiring author or even just like a student who loves your work out there, somebody who is in academia right now, they come to you and they say, Chimamanda, I hear what you're saying about empathy and seeing another person's point of view, but I feel like this person who I disagree with, the thing that I disagree with them on is the fundamental humanity or existence of another human being per se. Because that's what I've heard a lot of people say. They'll go, no. This is not a difference between 30% tax and 20% tax. I'm disagreeing with somebody who fundamentally believes that black people should not get this or that this group should not get that or that, you know what I mean? How would you encourage them then?
But I don't even agree that that's the case. I mean,
you don't agree that that's the case?
No, because I think that
that they're feeling that or that, which part are you not agreeing with?
No, I'm sure that they feel that.
Okay.
But that you feel something doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't. And I think that when you widen the definition of something, so this is somebody who believes that Black people should not have. Maybe that person just feels. Maybe that person supports school choice.
Okay.
And this is an exact example. Actually, I know somebody who is very upset because somebody supports school choice, and then the very strange conclusion was that this person who supports school choice doesn't like Black people. That's not. I mean, you could feel that, but that's not necessarily rational thinking. So I guess my point is, it's either people have become incredibly terrible in the past 20 years, or something has changed in the way, in our capacity to have compassion, to be more broad-minded, to think in more complex ways. My point being that 20 years ago, I don't think that this was happening. In other words, universities were places where you could still exchange ideas. You weren't terrified of saying something because you'd be blacklisted for saying the wrong thing. So, which is it? Is it that there are many more people now who fundamentally just have these really odious beliefs about other human beings? You said something about wearing our politics more closely. Is that what it is? And has it then tainted the way we look and the way we judge and the conclusions that we draw?
So, as I say often, I have a very dim view of human nature. It's very Hobbesian. So I've always thought people are terrible, and I still think they're terrible.
I don't think that's true.
I really ask this guy.
Christiana works on it's guilty until proven innocent. That's how she works with all humans.
Talk about generational trauma. I always say to my father and his two brothers miraculously survived Biafra, and considering what they've gone through, they are such good and compassionate and empathetic and non-suspicious people. You would think I went through the war. But then what I tell my therapist is that the generational trauma is that I'm hyper-vigilant. I'm probably speaking nonsense. But what I do say is some people have a more dim view of human nature. And if that is true, because I always say, there are racists need their outlets, sometimes their Twitter. Like, there are some people who have odious points of view.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's people that do not see my humanity.
Yes.
How do we go from there? Because I think there's an in-between.
Yeah, but I don't think that those are the people we're talking about, though. That's my point.
Oh, okay.
So in these circles that, so people on university campuses who, who don't feel comfortable saying what they think are not the crazy racists on Twitter. The crazy racists on Twitter do not interest me because I don't think it's even worth. I mean, there's some people that you shouldn't even bother engaging with or trying to change their minds.
So you're not talking about the fringe or you're talking about maybe the masses, the collective in the middle.
Yes, and the reason that yes, and I think it's important to say that because sometimes I think that instead of talking about that, we then sort of reach for the fringes as examples,
as a justification.
It's kind of also like saying that people who think that women, there are in this country many people who still, there are people in this government who think that just by virtue of being a woman, you're somehow incapable of certain things, right? I don't mean those people. So the atmosphere on university campuses today in this country just seems to me, and so when Trevor says and someone says, well, I can't speak to them because fundamentally they believe something that is so, and so that's my point. I'm thinking, did many people suddenly turn, or did our own perception change? Because these people that somehow have become so bad that you can never speak to them again, they're kind of in your circle. They were there 20 years ago, right? They're not in the fringes on Twitter.
They're in your community.
Yeah. And so what is it that has happened? It just feels to me a kind of confusing extremeness of reaction and perhaps maybe of opinion. And I don't fully understand it, but I don't trust it. So I don't.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I get it.
So this is how I think about it. One, I think social media dramatically changed our perception of where people sit in reality, right? It gave us a flattened view of people because that's what gets the algorithm. It's what ropes us in. So I will see the worst of you. because the worst of you is what inflames me the most. Or I'll only see the best of you because it attaches me to you. But the nuance it's boring, you know? So, and they show you this with the algorithms. Like if you sit down with the engineers, they'll show you, if somebody writes, it's a lovely day outside, it'll go nowhere. If you say best day ever, it goes somewhere. And if you say worst day ever, it goes somewhere. But if you use adjectives and descriptors that are like, they don't evoke something extreme, it doesn't really do anything. If you wrote a little tweet about a president and you said, you know, this president's not great, but they're also not the worst, and I guess everyone has their flaws, it's not going to go anywhere. You go, this president is destroying this country. They are the worst thing. And I think that started to filter into the discourse in American politics. And I think politicians, I genuinely put a lot of blame at their feet, because I think American politicians spent a lot of time using the language that really only wrestlers should use about their opponents, you know? So they would come out there and they would say things like, I remember you weren't there at the Daily Show yet, but in our first few years, we went to New Hampshire for the primaries. And I remember being so shocked at how Lindsey Graham's team was buddy-buddy with Hillary Clinton's team. And Lindsey Graham would send Hillary Clinton birthday messages and talk about her family. When you saw these people on a stage speaking about each other, they didn't even mince words. They would say, this person is going to destroy this country. They're killing this country. That, you know, and I've spoken to people who are far smarter than me in the world of politics, and they say it all started with Clinton around the Monica Lewinsky. They say that's when American politics became personal and like, quote unquote, evil, not evil. You know,
did they say it was created by Newt Gingrich?
Yeah. But I think that's where it became a thing. So if your leaders are saying, you see, now this is where now we come back to other politics. One of the things I've loved about going back to South Africa frequently is realizing that even in the doldrums of fighting in politics, I've never heard a politician say the other person is a devil, or they're destroying the country, or they don't agree with how they're doing it. They'll say they're incompetent at their job. They haven't met service delivery. But maybe my memory.
Ad hominem kind of.
Those attacks were think of the things that people have said, right, about other politicians, and then think of how incongruous that is with them and how they are with each other. They have lunch together. They have dinner together. They right. What then happens is their fans then adopt a thing that they don't believe in. But now the fans are the ones who control the theater of it all, the spectacle. And I don't know if there's a really amazing documentary I watched about Vince McMahon. It's fascinating. Even if you don't like wrestling, I recommend everybody watch this thing.
Who is Vince McMahon?
Vince McMahon is the man who basically made wrestling what it is today, right? I promise you now, it's even better if you don't like wrestling, in fact. Go and watch it. And one of the most revealing...
Trevor, life is so short.
Let me tell you...
So much I want to watch.
I would not recommend this to you if I did not believe it would give you an insight into America that very few documentaries can, right? Because one of the main things it shows you is how, like, there's a point where, long story short, the wrestling federations are splitting. And the wrestlers decide, before a few of the wrestlers leave, they decide they're going to give each other a big hug on the stage, and they'll basically drop the facade. And you should see the crowd and the way they react. The crowd, I was like, but surely they know that it's not real.
So the crowd got very angry.
The crowd they were furious. They were like, how could you? How could Shawn Michaels hug, Triple H? How it was, and I was like, oh yeah, this in many ways is what I think has happened with American politics. And to your point, the discourse, the leaders said, these are our enemies. People then adopted that. Yeah, how do you now discuss with your enemy?
I think we're putting too much blame on politicians.
Oh no, I'm not putting all of it.
And not enough responsibility on
individuals.
Yeah, and then also, which came first? What you said about social media, I agree more with, which is, this whole politician thing. You think everybody watches politicians? I
think everybody's affected by them. I think Donald Trump has shifted.
Yeah, but he's running a cult. That's a bit
different. Aren't they all in some way, shape, or form?
The Democrats is a bad cult.
No, but it's still. But I'm saying, like, let's take the Democrats away. Yeah. Let's look at people, because the Republicans also weren't great. Obama, Trump.
Yeah, culty.
Right? We talked about it with Josh, where he said that's why he calls him White Obama. He says, and people get angry, and I understand why. But on that episode when we talk about it with Josh, it's because
calls Trump white Obama.
So he says what Obama represented to so many people, especially black people, Trump represents to like so many white people, where they go, this is our moment, this is our the sort of lost dream, the lost idea, and it's a comedy premise. But he's not going, these are the same people. He's just saying for them, that is their promise.
You say
you know what I mean?
One speaks to the darkness, the other speaks to the light. But
Yes.
there's an overlap in their voters. And they both speak to some aspirations, but in different ways. That's the argument. You know.
It's hope, but in different directions.
Okay.
Obama goes hope.
You're not sold. I love it.
No, I'm not.
I mean, Chimamanda is not sold on anything, though.
I like it.
No, I mean, this
But
is...
she's great.
No, this is not true. That's good.
this is true. The same way Cristiano's not sold on... I don't expect to sell you on something.
No, I am sold on something. No, I'm just thinking about it, and whatever. It's not interesting to me.
So I will say this. I think it's a lot harder. Mm-hmm. I understand where a student or any person comes, and to talk of empathy, I understand it in all ways, to be honest with you. I can see somebody who goes, no, this country, we have to completely change this, and it's gone to the dogs, quote unquote. But then I also understand somebody who says, a lot of the language you're using, or a lot of these ideas, you don't even know where they came from. So you may be thinking of it just through the lens of school choice. But for many people who have like dug into the trenches of where ideas come from, you start to realize that some of the ideas are innocuous in their sound, but where they were written, do you know what I mean? Like how they were created.
That's fair. But the person who supports school choice does not know.
I agree with that.
It's history.
I agree with that completely.
There's the assumption that person should know, and then that person is judged on that, and then that person is ignored and blacklisted. But that person does not know.
Yes.
And it's also this new world where you're not even allowed. I mean, curiosity is dead. And as a person who I love learning. And I just keep thinking, what have we lost in this new sort of world where people don't even to ask a question, you're uncomfortable. I remember when I spoke at an Ivy League university, which will be unnamed. And so I had a few of the students in a sort of private meeting where because I like to know what young people are really thinking.
Yeah.
Away from the grown-ups. And so we started talking, and then I said, I knew if you're like uncomfortable to say what you really think. Everyone was like, no. And then one person goes, yeah, but sometimes. And suddenly all of them were like, yeah, sometimes. And even that struck me because I remember thinking we've gone from that kind of almost forced conformity to suddenly thinking, okay, maybe I can actually say what I'm really thinking. Right. Mm-hmm. And there was something about it that just made me sad because I thought they were graduating. And I thought, what have they lost out on learning in the 4 years they've been here? Because they've been too unsure, uncomfortable about asking questions. And again, so what I mean about these kids are not the fringe on Twitter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they already know that I better be careful, otherwise somebody will think that I'm a person who hates black people.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Do you see what? Yeah. And so I don't know, it just made me so sad.
Do you think that's a byproduct of who actually holds the power in universities? Like you see funding being pulled, you see rich donors saying, if you teach that, then I'm pulling my funding.
I think a large part of America's academia problem is money. There's just so much money that, even the entitlement of the students is about money. It's true though.
I mean, the school fees are high.
They're high, right? They're high. And so students feel like, well, I've bought this. I mean, when I taught creative writing at Princeton when I was doing a fellowship. And I remember a student coming to me and saying, you gave me a C. I've never gotten a C in my life. And I was like, how is that my your paper? I said, I can show you why. I mean, so I thought if the student had come to me to say, I want to prove to you that you've kind of, here's why I should not get the C. Here's the thing on my paper. But no, the student said, I have never had a C in my life. This is my first C. And so I want you to change it. And so my first thought was, I don't blame you. Maybe your father gave money to Princeton. But my dear, this is your grade because this is what you wrote in your paper. And we can discuss your paper. But that I feel like, so it's money, no, really. And then, they have so much money in the endowments, but there's, people are giving them money. And so they have special dinners for them. And so money, I think, is a major problem. And that's happening so much more. This whole, I will withhold my promised grant if you don't do. And then I think Israel Palestine has really made that so much more, whether like if you're doing that, therefore. And I just think, I also just wish that universities were not so beholden to people who have money, because then I think they would be more courageous. I think there's very little courage left in the public space. That's what I mean about longing for. I'm like Omelogo in Dream Count. I'm longing for what is noble, what is beautiful. I want heroes. I want people I can look up to and admire and learn from. I think there's a large part of me that is disillusioned, disappointed, even heartbroken. I hide it in sarcasm, but it's all there.
Yeah. Don't go anywhere, because we got more What Now after this. Do you think there's a part of you that not wishes, or I wonder if, this happens to everyone in the public space. You and I were talking about this. I've experienced this. Almost everyone has. There will be a moment where it feels like you are a hero, and then it feels like the natural part of that journey is to now be the villain, or to have and I don't know if it's art imitating life or vice versa.
So like you're placed high up that the only
like
is to come down.
I think about how if you and I had a conversation, I remember our first conversation, it was like I was speaking to Jesus. No, really, that's how people, Chima, they're like, wow, you're going to speak to Chima. Oh, wow, I ask her how but it was such in a beautiful way, but but people were like, wow, your words were gospel and this whole thing. And then I remember saying now to people, I was like, I'm going to speak to Chimamanda. And they were like, whoa, it gets you in trouble. Just so you know, you might get in a little trouble. There might be, that's
interesting to know.
Yeah, no, you're not on social media, I guess, but I don't know if it's because people wish for it to be the natural progression, or if, sort of going to what we started with, your fame sort of metastasizes for some people where they wish for you to be. They create an idea of everything that you must think. And if you deviate at any point from what they think you think, then they go, the whole thing must come down. Does that make sense?
That's interesting. How would it get you in trouble, though?
How would what get me in trouble?
Talking to me.
Oh, everyone has a different opinion on why. Some people will be like, oh, you're going to talk to her, she's anti-trans. Are you going to talk to a transphobe? And then I'm like, I don't think Chimamanda's transphobic. And they're like, you better check. Then someone else will go, oh, she's right-wing leaning. And I'm like, I'm pretty certain Chimamanda's not right-wing leaning. Then they're like, no, you see what she says about anti-cancel culture. And then I go, okay, now this is me as Trevor. What I always try and do for myself is I try and at all costs form my own opinion on something and then allow the world to, in some way, shape or form, bump up against that opinion, because I don't live in isolation. But when I read your piece on how it wasn't cancel culture, you said something that was beautiful. It was about, was it purity or, forgive me, I remember the message, but not all the words. But I remember reading it thinking, damn, this is a really insightful, messy and honest view on how we're dealing with conversations in society. You're failing a purity test and we're writing people off. And I've said this to you 1,000 times, Christiana. I go, guys, it's not sustainable to lose your whole family because your uncle said this thing. I was like, politicians will come and go. Topics will come and go. The people in your life hopefully won't. I'm a big fan of that, right?
This is the reason I'm not on social media.
I come through it from a different perspective. I think I hate how in America it's like, you're right, you're left, you're right-leaning. Because I think people contain multiple ideological positions. On some issues, on some right-wing leaning on what? Left-wing, there is no one.
Yes,
but
it's
I think
buffet politics.
I don't know. What are right-wing ideas? I mean, even that has shifted,
how do you
right?
Yes, but
that's
that
has shifted.
yeah,
that's true.
which is why it's not about, and I agree with you that we're not pure. I mean, and especially when you're a person who comes from, the reasonable regions of the world, that is Africa, Asia, Latin America, the Middle East. You kind of understand, you have uncles I have relatives who still think that women really should not be working outside the home. Mm-hmm. And, and then there's me. And we still happen to get along.
Yeah.
And I think that there's certain views that, some of my views have changed as I've become older. Even I think in some ways my feminism has changed. I think, for example, when I was younger, I didn't want to talk about women's bodies because I felt that this is how they stigmatize women. I felt like, no, nobody should talk about PMS because they use that to justify excluding women. They'll say things like, how can a woman be president when she has PMS? She's going to press the button, right? But now I realize actually men press the button without PMS as an excuse. So maybe women are still the better choice, right? Because if we can just get their hormones stable, then we're fine. But men, hilarious. My God, no PMS and they're just doing crazy things. So, but that has changed for me.
I can list people in every field, comedians who say, now I say a thing that's a joke. It used to be agreed that this was a joke. We all knew that this wasn't real. It's fiction. I do not want to kill my mother-in-law. And now someone goes, for you to be furthering the idea of violence. You're like, no. That, like Jimmy Carr says it really beautifully, the British comedian. He had this thing that he used to play at the beginning of his shows in response to this. And he'd have a message that would come on and it would say, hello, I'm Jimmy Carr and I'm a comedian. I want you to know that I'm going to be making some jokes about terrible things tonight. But remember, these are jokes about the terrible things. These are not the terrible things. The jokes are not making the terrible things, and the jokes are not changing the terrible things, but these are the jokes about the things. So have a good time. These are jokes. But I was amazed that even he had to put that in his show. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. But I do think, though, that I can tell you that there's certain jokes I will not laugh at. There's certain things I refuse to laugh about.
But that's fine. That's comedy. It's like there's some people who don't like spicy food. I judge them, but I don't mind that they do it.
I don't think that's a good analogy. Though.
Why not?
Because when I say I won't laugh, it's not like, it's just my taste. It's more that I think, in some ways similar to what you said about school choice.
Yes.
About how there are people who know that maybe deep down in the language or in the foundation of that idea, there's something that's actually quite, toxic or
there's something pernicious in it. Yeah.
So that's what I mean about there's certain jokes I won't laugh about because I think that there's certain jokes that are not just jokes. I think sometimes people are not laughing with you, they're laughing at you.
But I think this is a dangerous road to go down because you're a fiction writer. So someone could say to you, Chimamanda, your book, this cannot exist in because it is not, it is,
No, cannot exist. So here's the difference.
Yeah.
I will not laugh at that joke, but I'm not going to say you cannot say that joke.
Okay. No. But then we understand. But that's what I mean by it. That's why I'm saying it is taste. So comedians, and we love even doing this as comedians, we'll be in a show. We'll watch a comedian tell a very racist joke. We'll go, that's funny. And it's racist. And as comedians, we say, the craft of what the person is doing in terms of making a thing funny, they've done. But we're also acknowledging the roots of it. It is racist. The same way I can look at food. And I go this food is poisonous, but it's delicious. Do you know what I mean? And so I think we're on the same page there. I'm not saying people should laugh at everything the same way I don't think people should enjoy every book or every point of view, etc. However, that's why I think, we're saying the same thing.
Yeah. But Trevor, I want to go back to you. Asked me a question about making a decision sort of almost solo on your own versus, and I don't think of it as that kind of clear-cut dichotomy because I don't think it's even possible.
I wasn't saying clear-cut. I was saying more like, how do you find the balance? Like, what do you think the responsibility is? Because I don't think it's clear-cut, but you exist somewhere on that spectrum.
I exist on the, I'm sort of right-wing leaning. I lean towards thinking.
Okay.
I really believe in sort of lucid thinking.
Yeah.
So, and I like clarity. And, I'm a writer. I also like words to mean what they mean. I like clarity of language. I like clarity of thought. I like thinking about things. And, from the time I was a little girl, I just was never a person who went along with what I was supposed to do or believe. I've always kind of wanted to wait. I want to sit with this for a while and think about it.
Right.
But also I want to make decisions based on knowledge and information. So I'm very keen on learning. Like if there's a subject and so I want to go read about it. So AI, I've been reading books about AI because I don't know what the hell that's about. So now I know things like there's generative AI, there's predictive AI. And did you know about the training models? But so when I say make up my own mind, it's not that I just sit there with nothing. I want to gather information and then I want to process it for myself.
You're a student.
Yes, I'm a student.
Yeah.
And I always want to be a student. But what I can tell you is that I'm never going to be swayed by criticism. Never. That's never going to happen. I am the daughter of James and Grace Adichie, and it's not going to happen. That's it. That I have my opinions. I can have conversations with you about why I have those opinions. And I'm also very keen to know why you disagree.
Yeah.
If you're a person who can actually make coherent sentences about why you disagree. So yeah.
So you encourage the discourse and the dialogue, but it has to be grounded in, I guess, intellectual curiosity. And it seems like from reading your essays and your work, a mutual respect.
Yes.
Because the affront to you is just like, don't be disrespectful, which is how I put, don't disrespect me or I'm going to leave.
Exactly. Yes. If there's disrespect, I will not take it. I'm just not going to. And I think also, I remember once saying to somebody, I was loved. And I am loved. I had the best parents in the world. So I do not need to campaign for your love.
Yeah.
I don't need to change myself for you. If you like me, I'm happy that you like me. If you don't like me, I'm still me. And I wish that was easier for more people, especially women.
There's a line in the book where one of your characters is basically talking about, I think, like how the world is shaped. And they basically say something to the effect of, it's almost like America doesn't know that the world isn't America.
Yes. And only America is America.
Yeah, and I remember having this discussion with a friend of mine who was taken aback because they really felt offended, and I understood why. It was.
Trevor, is there anything you do not understand?
No, I try to understand most things genuinely. I think everything
that, by the way, was a joke.
Oh, everything's understandable, but I'm just like agreeing is different. I think. So, I remember
you would make a good fiction writer. This is actually how we're supposed to see. You're supposed to kind of understand everybody's point of view without necessarily agreeing.
Because he's biracial and he was born in apartheid.
I think
fit
so.
Anywhere, so he had to.
No, I think so. In many ways, I think
the different vantage points.
I've been trained from my birth to be that way as a person. So I had no one way of eating food. I had no one way of celebrating a Christmas. I had no one way of speaking a language. I had no one way of my hair looking, my face looking. I had no one way of my country being. So I've never believed that there is a one way. You get what I'm saying? So I remember like one of the first ones that came to me was, I remember I told this as a joke in one of my shows long ago, but I said, I always found it interesting that people would mock someone with another accent. But I'd go, but somebody who has an accent, it means that they're fluent in another language. And that was something that, so for me, when you talk about understand, I would always go, yeah, if somebody has a funny accent, it can be funny, but don't ever forget that it means that they speak another language fluently. That's why they have the accent. And so when I think of these things, I was doing shows in the Middle East, and my friend said to me, hey man, aren't you conflicted? You go to the Middle East and you do shows, and I said, what do you want me to be conflicted about? And they said, well, their views on gay marriage. And I said, it's interesting that you asked me this because America's views on gay marriage are not as old as you think. Like this is a now thing. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but we have to remember homophobia is alive and well in America.
But what I'm saying is, what got me with that was I was saying, I'm not dismissing it. Far from it, you know what I mean? But what I'm saying is, it's interesting how, for me, when America has finished with an issue or has decided a place, it then now goes, that is correct now for the world. Yep. So before gay marriage is accepted in America, Americans go like, no, gay marriage is, no, God, Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Come on, we all agree on this. America says gay marriage, and then America goes on a conquest around the world, pointing at every country to be like, where's your gay marriage? And then I go, guys, how old is the UAE as a place, like as an actual country? How old is it? And I go, if you look at the advancements they've made in the time that they've been a country versus how long it took America to get to those places, it's actually pretty impressive. Now, you want them to do it overnight because you've already agreed upon it, but you're not giving them their time to get to it, which I think we all do as people. Why have you not found Jesus yet? I found Jesus. Then you're like, yeah, but there was a time when you hadn't found Jesus. Yes, but now that I found him, why don't you find Jesus? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, when you say we all do it, I don't think we all do it. But anyway.
Oh, maybe you do.
I don't.
Yeah, no, but I think when I say all, I mean the collective, you know?
But you know what's interesting? And it's true. It's true about Americans. And I think it comes from, just listening to you and, this person says to you, aren't you conflicted? And then you're saying, let's look at the UAE. How old is it?
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, that American point of view often comes from a place of just not knowing very much about the world. And also I sometimes feel that arguments in this country are not rooted in information and knowledge. It's not just that often they can feel like performances, but it would be nice if, someone said, why aren't you conflicted? And someone else says, no, I'm not conflicted. Well, people like jokes, and so I'm going to go where people like jokes. I think that's kind of what you would often hear in America.
Okay.
Rather than, how old is the UAE? How long does it take a society to evolve? What are the changes that have happened that speak to a certain kind of hopeful progressivism? That doesn't happen. So, Trevor, you need to start classes.
This is the class.
No, which you teach people how. No, but really, I'm just thinking, and I think it is true about really a lot of things. I just wish that sometimes if there was a huge issue of the day, outrage of the day, that people would be like, I'm not going to have an opinion until I've read a book about it.
Take a bit. You know what? Trevor's the king of that. Not the book, but remember at the show, the Daily Show, I think it was Jussie Smollett is the example always come to mind. Jussie Smollett, the incident happened where he said he was assaulted by these Trump people. We're doing the meeting, we're watching the videos, and, people are like, oh, this is so outrageous, this is so sad. Myself, who's like Trotsky on the far left, and another writer who I won't name, but is pretty right-wing, we both said, there's something not right. And Trevor said, you see these two people? They never agree.
I did say that.
And he's like, guys, let's pause. Trevor said, we're not gonna cover this.
Yeah.
We're not gonna go for like MAGA racists. And we had all the roles, because it's a big production to get all these clips. We had all the roles. People had their takes. People had made jokes about how it was. And Trevor was like, let's take a beat. And this was like on the Monday or Tuesday. Wednesday, more's coming in. People are saying justice for Jussie Smollett, like Kamala Harris, everyone's tweeting. Trevor's still like, let's take a beat. I think it was until like Wednesday or Thursday, it emerges that, the story wasn't what he was professing it to be. And Trevor was like, okay, now we're ready. And I always think about that when a story breaks or there's some hot button issue. Because I'm always like, I'm quite fiery, as you may have gathered. I used to be of the view of like, this is my opinion. But Trevor's very good at, let's take a beat, let's read more. I used to get frustrated because I'd be like, this happened to these people, they're dying. And Trevor said, well, people die every day. We can't we have to have an informed response to what's happening.
I feel the same way.
So here's where I have a compassion for people. I think it's unfair for us to expect that of people because they are living in the world that they're living in.
Yeah.
No, I honestly.
So unfair to expect it of everyone?
Yes, I think. I'll tell you why.
I'm sorry, Trevor.
Yeah, you can disagree, but let me explain.
People have a certain responsibility. It's unfair to expect it of people who are deep inside something. So, for example, to say, if you said to me, it's unfair to expect people in Gaza, or it's unfair to expect people who lived through what happened in Israel to be rational or objective.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But the average person, no.
Okay.
We have a responsibility.
But now here's
So are you Jesus then? Are you above everyone else? How come you? No, but really.
No, let me explain.
How come you?
Let me explain why. Okay, let me explain why.
Because this argument, I'm going to say that the foundation of it is very self-aggrandizing.
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I love it.
So here's what I think. I think we all have areas where we are able to see what others cannot see. It might present itself differently. I think LeBron James sees things on a court that most human beings cannot. That just happens to be his area where he sees it. There'll be things that I see that other people cannot. You can choose a field, you can choose a world. There are people who see things that others cannot. I think in society, once we created institutions, we basically outsourced that expertise to institutions in a very good way, and that became a lot of what advanced society. right? And so, like, let's think of it this way. Let's look at a nutrition label on a box of something or food when they would say healthy or whatever. People are relying on the fact that that food has been inspected and so it is healthy and so they will ingest it.
Yeah, but
right?
that's kind of different though.
No, but why?
Different from there's a new outrage of the day, like this story that you told of the guy who said someone had mugged him.
Yes.
And suddenly people have opinions. My thing is, often people don't.
But there's no book to read on that. What do you want them to do?
But I think we're not disagreeing all the way. Are you talking about the reflexive urge
Yes.
to take a side?
Yes.
And you want people to take a beat?
Yes.
I'm with you
so when I
completely
heard
on this.
that, my
Yes.
thing, and so I often also say, go to the primary source. Like, so sometimes someone will forward something to me. Is this true? And I'm just like, where did you get this from?
But Chimamanda, I think you are overestimating people's ability to even know what the source should be. Like, I went to journalism school, and sometimes I've been tricked.
But that's what
I've been tricked
I
myself.
In what way?
You know, there's sometimes it's just like I think it was an AI thing. I was sent something recently and I was momentarily duped until I dug a bit deeper and I was like, oh, this is not true. This is manufactured. And I think we assume people to be a lot more literate than they are. And that's not coming from an arrogant place. We're just flooded with information. And I tell you, I'm like, sometimes I get WhatsApp forwards from my auntie. I'm like,
Yes.
Auntie, where did you, especially during COVID, chew ginger, snip. And I was like,
Yeah,
Auntie,
yeah.
but she was like, no, don't get the vaccine, chew ginger and you'll be fine, right? And to task that person with finding the truth, a lot of people don't know where to start, especially where we are being flooded with misinformation.
True.
So I think Trevor's saying maybe we should have a bit more grace because not everyone is able to maneuver
No,
in the same way.
I'm saying that we should not take for granted the fact that the systems have been corrupted in such a way that the people who are looking for the thing are often the ones who are duped the most. A perfect example is vaccines, right? Most of the parents who don't want to get their kids vaccinated read more than the parents who get their kids vaccinated. They go out there and they say, I want to do the research. I want to learn. I want to inform myself. What is a vaccine? What's going into my child? What's happening? And because of that and the information that they then get their hands on, they then make the decision to not vaccinate their child because they think that they have been able to do, quote unquote, more research than an institution or than a body of science or medicine. And so in the same way, you've read a book on artificial intelligence, that's what I think a lot of people are doing. And I'm not saying you are doing this, by the way, but then someone might go, no, I've read a book on artificial intelligence. Ergo, I now know it for myself. And it's like, no. Trust me, a data scientist and an engineer who's actually coded that, they know it more than you do. The book has tried to give you some sort of introduction to it, but the expert is still the expert of it. And so I think what I mean by all of this is America's an example. I used to think that a lot of America's decisions were from like a lack of knowledge. And I think it is in many ways, but I also think it's like the history of the place, right? Look at what America was when it becomes this world power. It's a coming together. It's a university of everyone. The brightest thinkers, the smartest from Eastern Europe, the most brilliant from like the UK. It's just this melting pot of the most brilliant human beings who've come together. And you could argue at some point, America is the bastion of like science and freedom and ideas and thinking, and the schools are different, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think like most systems, or even like most people, you can think that will just maintain itself, but you might be stuck in time. And so I think America still thinks that it is ahead of the world in everything because it may have been at a time. But I have a lot of compassion for people who are in that system because I go, it's Plato's cave. If you're in the cave, how can you know that you're in the cave if the cave's telling you that it's not a cave? It's the only world you've ever been in. So how do I give you that responsibility? I think we should put the responsibility at the feet. The same way, I don't think it's our responsibility to recycle. I think it's the government's responsibility to make sure that the things that need to be recycled aren't even made in the first place.
So I think both things can be true, though.
I'm with you. They're my sister, 100%.
Because, I mean...
No, they're 100%.
And because I really do believe in the idea of experts. I really do. Like I want... And this is also the thing I often say, I want a president who knows more than I do. Like, I want someone... in every country that but anyway, that's not the case. But yes, we want experts, and yes, misinformation is increasingly a problem. But I think there is still, and what you said about people who read about vaccines, I mean, I take your point. But I think that those people, is it fair to say that they have already started with a kind of conspiracy theory point of view, which will then, I think, shape where they read? Because if we are talking about experts, maybe they should go to the CDC website. But they don't.
To that point, though, what I think there is no center right now. You know, when we're talking about the...
So that's the point. That's what I mean about even the idea of experts has become corrupted.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Because don't forget, the CDC were the same ones who told people not to wear masks.
Yes.
Because they actually just wanted to make sure masks didn't get run out, masks weren't taken away from the doctors. But they lied
wish they
to the
had been
people.
more honest about that.
You see.
Yeah.
So now imagine somebody going, wait, they lied.
Yeah.
And they go, yeah, but we lied for good reasons. The same way like any child therapist will tell you, your kid doesn't care why you lied. They just know that you lied. And now they know that lying is allowed, even though mommy or daddy says lying is not allowed, because they've watched your actions. And I think that's what I mean is like, if somebody has been lied to by the CDC about, maybe they had good intentions, but they've been lied to. How do they now then trust that same CDC versus now the account that told them something else, and then that account happened to be true? And you just need like a few truths to start sprinkling in the rest of the lies. Right? If your baseline...
But that's CDC action. How do we feel about it? I mean, can we really not make a distinction between...
I think it was terrible.
So do I.
Yes.
But does it cause you to then distrust everything the CDC says?
No, I think for most rational people it doesn't, but we're in a heightened time where there is just like a lot of institutional distrust. I mean, my husband thinks I'm susceptible to cults.
No, but I think everyone is.
Like,
I think everyone is.
Not just what the algorithm feeds you, but it's been a destabilizing few years. And I think everyone's asking themselves this question, what is true? And what do I believe? What am I? And that's why because of the fear, we're going to all these extremes. And for a lot of people, they're just like, the CDC did this one thing wrong. Forget the CDC.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Whether that's right or not, I can't really judge. But I think there's just so much mistrust.
You know, honestly, that's probably one of the biggest reasons I do love fiction. One of the biggest reasons I love fiction is because I do not have to question whether it's real or not. And then I'm more susceptible to the message that it's giving me. I mean this, honestly.
You said it's the last frontier.
Yeah.
Because when it is fact, who said this? What's the data? What's the information? And we do episodes on this all the time. We talk about these things. The data's flawed. The study was flawed. The people running. But with fiction, I just go, this is the world you've created. I don't have to question its realness, but the messages I can completely accept, disagree with, respond to, because in a weird way, fiction creates the most real reality.
It does. It does. You couldn't have said it better. Bravo! People should read more novels and short stories.
I agree.
And sometimes even the old ones, because there's just lovely wisdom in them, I think. I mean,
do you have any favorites you'd recommend?
Old or
no,
recent?
Old.
I really like Middlemarch. I think it's very long, but it's very wise and just really, I was going to say teaches you, but actually it does.
Yeah.
In a way that you're having fun, but you're also learning, and you're in the hands of a very wise writer. There's a wonderful writer from Poland who wrote this book called The Beautiful Mrs., and I cannot pronounce the name, Seidenman. But if you just go The Beautiful Mrs., I'm sure
it'll come up. Yeah, it will come up.
I also just find it very wise. I love realism. I don't really like speculative fiction. I'm not interested in science fiction. And I just feel like I learned the most from novels because I learn about human beings. And I think it helps me understand the world and helps me... Oh, there's something I forgot to say, which I have to say. Which is... So I increasingly I'm fascinated by how what people think is sophisticated is in fact not at all. I mean, there's a sense in which the arguments and the positions are really incredibly simple and simplistic. But the people who talk about them think that they're very sophisticated.
Yes.
And I'm thinking about that because of what you said about a certain kind of maybe an insufficient self-knowledge. So in other words, the way that America thinks that it is still leading the world,
yes,
is the same way that I think certain people in America think that they're incredibly sophisticated in their thinking, but actually it's very provincial and simple.
Yes, that I can agree with.
Yeah.
On that note, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Imela.
Thank you very much. For real, this was too much fun for me.
So, Miss Trotsky, tell me more about you.
No, I'm not God. I don't want any trouble.
Thank you very much.